Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joe Moran and I'm here with River Brown, John Tortorelli, and Joe Dehls. And this is now episode 434. In this episode, we're going to have a combination of NFL and NBA topics. Week 14 takeaways, Thursday night football preview, talk about the Vikings, talk about the Seahawks because they just had some great wins this weekend. And then for the NBA, Players of the Week, Luka Doncic, could you believe that, Dehls? I mean, we got to talk about Luka Doncic. Nah. Tyler Herro, is he a top 5 shooting guard in the league now? I mean, is it possible? Can we have the conversation? We're going to talk about them and then some other NBA stuff as well. Fellas, how are you guys doing today? John, how are you doing? You're sitting in Drew's chair today?
I am. I'm doing fantastic. Life has been good recently.
Who are you watching on the high low? Is that Malcolm Brogdon?
No, not right now. No. I was watching Tyler Herro clip, actually.
Okay.
Life's been good. I am my semester, finally getting to that point where I can beat Riv's team in basketball. I want to talk about that today. Riv was talking a lot of shit, and then first game of the season, we get into a rubber match, and Riv's team does not really compete well in those tight gotta-have situations.
Would you say they're lacking a leader?
I think so, yeah. Last game, he took Darian out the game. Darian had 2 game winners for him last year, and in overtime, he had Darian out the game. I'm like, what are you doing?
Why the fuck does he think I take guys out the game?
You're the captain.
No, but usually when somebody comes sub in, I'm not paying attention to who's subbing. Like, I feel like as grown men, we need to understand who needs to be in the game. So, when John said that, that's when I first realized, oh shit, Darian's not in the game. So I'm walking to the side. I'm like, yo, what's up? He was like, somebody took me out. I'm like, okay, like, are you gonna eventually get back in? No, but I don't do subs. I don't do subs.
So it's just free will, just whoever could come.
Just kind of like you feel it out. Like you see somebody's, somebody's playing bad, you go take them out. Somebody's in foul trouble, you go grab them. It's really a fill out moment. Like and we don't have any guards off the bench. Yeah. So
do you want to talk about our game at all? 'Cause you're talking a lot of shit.
I'm curious to know what you think you did.
What do I think I did?
What you think you did? He's saying you ain't do nothing.
He's saying I did nothing.
I'm kidding. No, I didn't. I'm just. You've been excited to talk about it, and yes, spoiler alert: John's team won by 5 points.
He described it to us.
7
He described it to us as a very ugly game where neither side really got anything going. It's like 37 to 32 or something.
Riv had 7 turnovers, that type of game.
Was it that game?
Yeah.
That was game 4.
39-32 final score. I mean, I played my role. The entire time I was kind of out of it because I lost my keys during the game, so I was tripping out. And that's why I didn't play half. I didn't play half the game. I didn't play half the game for that reason, like the first half. But no, Riv's team, we threw a zone at him, and quite frankly, they didn't have the distributor and the decision maker to really beat that zone. 2 or 3, something very high school-esque.
Yeah, very,
and
very
Riv's team
simple.
struggled with it quite much.
Ask him how many bigs does he have down low.
A lot.
There's like 2, 6, 4 guys.
I was down low actually in the zone, by the way.
No, you were in the corner.
I was, yes, in a 2-3 zone. I was dropped.
You was in the corner. You had red. First of all, cheat codes. They had this other 6'3" dude at the top. So he's in front of me.
AB.
Then if I get past him, there's another 6'3" dude in the middle.
He's like
so it's like, all right, like let's figure out where we're going.
But
our shooters are airballing.
Yeah,
It was really an ugly night.
Yeah,
But you didn't shot well, I heard, either.
Nah, I didn't.
Okay.
No, he shot like 30%.
I would love to hear your answer at a press conference if you play poorly. I lost my keys. I wasn't in the right mindset for half the game.
No, you gotta imagine though. I got class next day at 8 a.m. and I'm trying to figure out where my code is, my keys. So I'm playing sweats, and the entire time I'm afraid of how I'm gonna get home. So the first half I don't play, and then I didn't watch the first half. I'm like, rip by 12, whatever. And then
So
I go
you're
in the
saying
game.
the difference in just winning by 7 points and winning by 20 was you losing your keys?
My keys. It might have just been.
Did you find your keys?
Yeah, I found them. Yeah, they're.
Were they in your pocket? Like
no, they're in the stands behind like a group of people, and I checked everywhere, but they're neither here nor there. Ugly game, all things considered, and for the amount of shit that you talked, I found it funny that you mentioned it on the show because it's disappeared.
So what's your career record against Riv now?
Hilarious. It's probably even now.
No, it's not.
It has to be.
3-2 versus you, buddy.
You're a liar. We beat you 3 times in the regular season last year.
You're lying.
You beat us once.
You beat us twice, and then we beat you once, and we beat you in the playoffs when it matters. It tied up.
I don't think that's true.
Yes, it was true. Yeah, the
John.
game where you came and I came, you came late, and it was game 4.
John, are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't think you. No.
Because I was the player of the game. We won on a game winner.
Oh, he's not going to forget the player of the game.
I remember you guys winning once.
I do remember because I had like all of her points and all of her assists.
I remember you guys winning once in the regular season.
Yeah, that was an ugly game too.
So it's 3-2.
Yeah.
3-2.
Okay.
You might not get back in the win column. I'm sorry about it.
You guys beat us by 7.
Yes, with all of us playing poorly.
We made you guys play poorly.
It sounds like Riff's team played pretty poorly too.
We played worse than them.
I don't think you understand what I'm putting down.
Their
I'm a
best
point
player.
guard.
No, they're actually.
I'm a point guard.
Their
and I
best
didn't
player
play.
played well. Their best player played well.
He did, but I'm a point guard, and I didn't play for half the game.
If you played, it wouldn't matter.
I was busy straddling the
You don't play
sidelines
well
looking for
against
my
me,
coat.
anyways.
He
You don't
has
have
said
any
that
good
before.
games against me.
That's what he said. That's why in the playoffs.
Actually, as a matter of fact, you guys locked me up because you weren't in the game.
No, that's not how.
Yeah.
Oh, to see
that's
and
actually
so
how it
what
goes.
Riv's not understanding
Gets you
is
into
that
action?
they couldn't score against our zone, and a zone, none of us would be defending him. So it's kind of tough for him to single out one defender. It's not how it
Unless he just
generally
runs
works.
to your zone, just like gets in the corner and just starts getting in his back.
No, we definitely missed a lot of shots. We for sure missed a lot. My brother airballed like 5 times.
It just seems like you don't have a team as good as his.
No, I think we do.
This year you do?
Yeah.
So no excuses this year.
No excuse.
Joel,
No, I think we do.
yeah.
What's your
Boss.
records?
It's one, we're 1-1.
I don't think we're gonna lose.
Are you 1-1 as well?
Oh, they're gonna
You're
lose.
very confident, John.
They're
like
gonna
my
lose
team.
to us.
When do you play next?
that?
Tonight.
We, we don't play them tonight.
Yeah.
I would have loved.
Yeah.
No, actually, we're
We play a
hurt
good team
today, so
tonight.
actually, I
He's
wouldn't have.
cashing a lot of checks that his teammates got to cash.
Oh yeah, Mr.
That's
4
what I'm
fucking
listening
points.
to, John.
Yeah, he definitely had.
Wait, what'd you do in this past game? What'd you put up?
I had 8, 4, and 4.
Calm.
Yeah.
Efficient?
Well, I had 4 or 5 shots. My boy Evan got up 17 threes because of me. I'm a point
17
guard.
threes?
On our, yeah, I know.
Wait, how many did he make if he only scored 30
like
points?
5, like 5.
No,
bro.
this is Thursday's game.
Evan
So
can
about
shoot.
Thursday's game.
But like
okay.
on this team, we're just a lot of shooters and a lot of athletes, but none of them are point guards. I go from the 2 to the 1. I'm a good point guard in that kind of environment. There's no one else that runs the position.
Do you guys have
then I
set
don't
plays?
shoot. No, but we do like
Just
move,
like down screens?
We move and
Yeah.
run. So
Okay.
yeah,
We'll see him again.
Free flowing offense.
a free
You
flowing
will.
Warriors
offense.
esque.
We'll see
Now,
him again.
in this episode, I didn't mention this, but we're also going to mention the Eagles. AJ Brown calling out the Eagles' passing attack. We're going to dive deep into that. Drew's not here today because he went to the Jimmy V Classic at Madison Square
Garden.
Garden.
Shout out.
He got invited by a friend, and then he decided to go there. Some great, awesome seats. Hopefully, he's having a great time. There's some big things that happened this week that aren't topics, but that we have to talk about at least a little bit. Number 1, Juan Soto signed with the Mets.
Let's go.
Number 2, AJ, the number 1 high school recruit, went to BYU.
Well, that happened today.
I know it did happen today.
Juan
Yes.
Soto's-
excited about that.
Juan Soto's more important.
AJ just made $8 million as an 18-year-old.
Juan Soto
17-year-old.
just made the
He
highest
just
paying
made almost
contract
$1
in
billion.
He did. That shit's
sports
nuts.
history.
And then number 3 is not nothing crazy or nothing. It's just for me, my fascination with a certain college quarterback is continuing to grow.
Penn State.
Drew Alar.
Drew
Drew
Aller.
Aller.
I think he is
This is
awesome.
not Aller.
I don't know. You know, I'm
It's
terrible
Allard,
with names.
Alar, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll figure it out by the time draft season
Drew
rolls
Aller.
around, or maybe somebody in the comment
think
section
it is
will
Aller.
correct me.
Curious at your fascination with him because he's kind of mid.
He completed 69% of his passes this year, up from 59% last year.
Didn't really
He was
do
more
much this
efficient.
year.
No.
But they didn't have a lot of
He was a
guys.
project, and he
I
has
have to
everything.
watch the film on him, but 21 years old, he has a rocket arm. He's 6'5". I wouldn't be
And what's
surprised.
his skin color?
He's white.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised
What's that do
if
with anything?
by the time draft season rolls around, he's the number 1 quarterback off the board with all the hype around his traits. That's what I would say, because if the Giants get the first pick, I could very well see them maybe going after Drew. But Shedeur Sanders, I think, to the Raiders is like kind of a lock. But you can speak on Juan Soto, Dehls.
Oh, what a great day. What a great birthday present Steve Cohen gave me. I wish Drew was here so we could really go back and forth and talk shit, because I would like to hear his perspective. The Yankees just signed Max Fried, so shout out to them. But it's hard to not feel like it's a new day in New York sports, Rib. I mean, the Yankees, the big bad Yankees that have been running this sport really before we were born, and then after we were born, they won like 1 championship, I guess 2, include 2000 and whatnot. But since then, like, I feel like the Yankees fascination is always the 27 championship, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, all of these old guys that none of us ever seen play, right? Like, you saw some highlights of them in the black and white and shit, but like in reality,
Kinda like the Celtics.
I don't think, maybe a little bit, I don't think the pinstripes have as much weight as a lot of Yankees fans think it does. Like, this is a team that, for the most part, has fallen short over the last 15 to 20 years. They went to the World Series and won it in 2009. This was their first appearance since then. Since 2015, Mets went to the World Series 2 times. They lost both times, not great. But there's been a ton of teams who have won 1 World Series in the last 15 years. So I feel like Juan Soto, picking the Mets over the Yankees because the money was basically identical. The Mets offered $5 million more. I really don't think Juan Soto was like, I need to make this obvious that I'm going to the Mets to make $5 million extra dollars. I think he saw our team, saw the youth we have with Vientos and a lot of the young prospects we have. But more importantly, Steve Cohen probably told him, I will do whatever it takes for however long it takes to win this team a World Series, if not multiple World Series. I think we've seen with the Yankees is that they don't have unlimited money like the Mets do, and not a lot of teams do, but Steve Cohen is one of those who is worth $20 billion, and he's a diehard Mets fan. And ever since he took over the team, he said, finances are not going to be an issue. I'll pay whatever it takes to get whoever we want. In the early days, it was Verlander and Scherzer on short-term deals as they try to make a competitive team and build up the farm system. Now that they have a pretty good farm system in place for going out and getting Juan Soto, they're in conversations with a bunch of other people as well. And this was the dream when Steve Cohen bought the team. You know, like a diehard fan, diehard person who's a fan of the team, who has all of the money and resources in the world. He's talking about opening like casinos and bars around the Queens area. Of course, you hear all of that's coming out about how the Mets are treating players, that they're like one of the most high regarded organizations in terms of how they treat families and friends of the players. So, oh man, I was just in my glory when that happened. Chelsea was the one who actually broke the news to me. She's like, he went to the fucking Mets. I was like, there's no way. So 15 years, $760 million. There is a 90% chance, 99% chance that Juan Soto is going to go down as the best Met in the franchise history, at least as a batter, because Tom Seaver was probably the best. I don't know if anyone's going to touch him, but in terms of positional player, Juan Soto has as good a chance as anybody to be the best player in Mets history.
Ownership matters in every single sport, but in baseball it matters more because there's no salary cap.
I love that.
So
for them,
like the Mets, before Steve Cohen was there, I mean, I don't know the history of the franchise, but
It was shitty.
it definitely felt like it was cheap, and now it's not. Now you're the richest franchise in sports. You're able to splurge on free agents and really stack the deck, sort of Dodgers-esque.
The Mets had, the previous owner were the Wilpons. The Wilpons were never like super, super rich, but they were part of the Bernie Madoff scandal that happened in like the 2000s, where Bernie Madoff robbed all of those people of all their money, being a scam artist basically. And the Wilpons were like a big part of that. So they didn't have a ton of money, and then they lost a bunch. So they were really cheap for a majority of the 2000s and 2010s.
And AJ, how do you say his last name? DiBonesta?
You're asking the wrong brother.
DiBonesta? DiBonsta?
I think you're on the right track.
BYU.
Yep.
He saw what Zach Wilson did and said,
I gotta go there.
Yeah, they threw him $8 million. Listen,
Denim.
Who went to BYU that's giving him $8 million?
it's an
Like what
assistant
boost?
coach.
Steve Young?
No, it's an assistant coach there. I don't really know, honestly. I just know you got to throw that money when you're dealing with these blue bloods. You got Kansas, you got Kentucky, Arkansas. You know, you got Houston, you got Texas, you got all these top teams. When you're in a school like that, you gotta just start throwing the kitchen sink. Like, yo, brother, we'll throw the bag at you. You know, you come here. But this AJ is really, honestly, a really scary prospect because you can line him up with Andrew Wiggins when he was coming up. You can line him up with Paulo. You can line him up with Cade. You can line him up with damn near Cooper Flag. You can line him up with a lot of these guys, and he's right there with them. Like, as a prospect coming out, he's just as dominant. This dude has 3 levels scoring prowess. He's long. He's athletic. It reminds me a lot of T-Mac in his game. So going to BYU, you know, Igor's already over there. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick in his draft class.
He's good.
He's really good. And I think AJ, we were talking about in the chat, you can put him up against Cooper Flag. Like, I think he's better than Cooper Flag, but Cooper Flag is so fucking good too. So, but AJ's just a dog. So shout out to BYU for getting a stud like that. And I think they predicted it last year. I think their coach was like, this ain't a hypothetical. Like, we're getting AJ. And then they ended up getting him. So shout out to them.
Let me ask you, reminds me of a specific player. What NBA player does he remind you of?
Is it T-Mac?
He said Tracy McGrady.
I know, outside of Tracy McGrady. Here's someone else.
Brandon Miller.
He reminds me of Jaylen Brown a lot when I watch him play.
Really?
Yeah. He looks a little bit bigger though, so.
He's taller for sure.
Yeah,
What's his frame?
so-
He's skinny. But he's
like 6'9".
Yeah, he might be a little taller than that. He looks 6'9", 6'10" for sure. Long, athletic.
All I
just
know
looks
is that
skinny.
whenever I play NBA 2K my league, in like 3 years, he's the best player in the league. He's like one of.
Yeah.
He would have went number 1 this year probably.
OKC always drafts him in my leagues. They always have the first pick. They draft him all the time.
Who's your baseball team? Are you a Yankee fan?
I'm a Pirate fan, technically.
Right. My apologies. I don't know why I was
So
thinking
Pittsburgh,
you're a Yankee
everything,
fan.
huh?
Yeah, for the most part. I don't have a basketball team, unfortunately.
never
If
heard
they
of it.
did, that would be my basketball team. If they got an expansion team tomorrow, I'll be rooting for
What's
them.
this thing with Pittsburgh? Are you just like
Are
the
you
Steelers
from
that
Pittsburgh?
much?
No, I'm not from Pittsburgh, but the Steelers got me into sports.
Oh,
and
okay.
honestly, I had such a close affinity to the team growing up as a kid, revered the franchise in the city, so that I couldn't really root for a New York sports team. And then honestly, I feel like when the Pirates got really good in 2015 with Andrew McCutcheon after he won MVP, I was like, this is their first time being good in almost 20 years. So I really watched baseball in those years where he had elite pitching, and then they really fell off a cliff, and obviously are a good example of having cheap ownership. So I haven't really watched baseball since then.
Yeah, but you got Skeens now, though.
We do.
If there's
We
any
do.
reason to watch the Pirates
Exactly.
once every 5 days, that's a good reason.
That coffee was sex.
No, the coffee's
Oh, you
not
like the
good.
coffee?
Yeah.
I dominated it. It's gone.
Not even
it
sipping
was
on it. You
Jess
just gulped
is
it
gonna-
down.
No,
man.
the
Listen
end is
back to
OD.
this.
Slurp that shit.
When you get to the end,
Yeah,
woo,
atta boy.
yeah,
What flavor is
that a
this?
boy.
That's
Okay,
caramel, but
What?
she also put some cream
That's
in
what I
it.
said.
So how Jess makes a coffee, the Nespresso pods is a must, but then she has whipped cream, and then she made her own caramel sauce yesterday. So because if you go to the stores, the creamers, I don't know if you knew this, but the main ingredient in the creamers is vegetable oil. Wow. That's the main ingredient. Really? So she doesn't use that in her creamer. So with the caramel and how she made it, she knows all the ingredients that went into it and stuff. And
That a boy, huh?
yeah, and then she made some cream too.
Still on
So
that?
Just
some caramel,
seems
some cream, and stuff.
crazy.
Iced caramel coffee. Other breaking news: Aaron Rodgers shattered his 300-yard passing game streak.
Saquon broke Shady's record, 13 games.
Yeah.
There we go.
So now Aaron Rodgers, you can't say that he hasn't thrown for 300 passing yards because he just did it against the Dolphins. Put us in a position to win that game.
Saquon officially became the best running back we've ever had in our lives.
Yet didn't do enough because Garrett Wilson was open and then he missed them.
Dude,
So,
who cares?
yeah, it just feels like,
Who cares about the damn Jets? Am I right, John? Let's talk about the Steelers.
So the fucking Steelers tells.
Let's talk about Week 14 NFL takeaways. Riv, what is the takeaway you had? And we'll go round table. Then you, John, then Dehls, then me.
So the main important thing for me is, I think the Jalen Hurts stuff, of course, both of these takeaways, I'm going to just say both, are of my teams, the Eagles and the Bills. Only teams that really matter to me in this NFL stuff. But both takeaways I have just from the Eagles, just this offense is sluggish. This offense is very slow. The play calling has been a little bit funny. But what was weird to me is just watching the game, watching the Panthers game. This was supposed to be a wash. This was definitely supposed to be a walk in the park. And, of course, we have people coming out, after the game. Oh, look, the Eagles struggled to play the Panthers. The Panthers could have won. This is an ugly win. Look at this team. And it's like, Eagles fans, pump the brakes. We're on a 9-game win streak. We've beat some really good teams in this stretch. Yes, we struggled against the Panthers. It's life. It happens. Move on to the next week. This is not like last year at all. We will not fumble the bag throughout the end of the year. But what is concerning is definitely how the play calling and the offense has been still slow. Not even. I don't want to say the offense. I want to say that just the passing game has definitely been a little sluggish. I feel like we need to work on that in department. And we've had some faults this year. I mean, AJ Brown has missed some time. Smitty has missed some time. Dallas is still out. He's missed some time. So we have yet to have those three guys, our top guys, in the lineup for maybe more than 5 or 6 games. Probably maybe a little bit more if we have. But they've been in and out the lineup. So that's important. But nonetheless, and then our defense, we was letting Adam Thielen have a damn game. So, our defense we got the W. For Buffalo, it was a nightmare. I call it a nightmare because that game, watching Josh Allen throughout his career and just being a fan of him, that game kind of gave you flashbacks of Josh in the playoffs, putting on the Superman cape on, being a hero, and the defense just failing time and time again. And it's definitely that moment. And listen, the Rams are no joke offensively. I think you have Staffy, who put on one of his perennial performances. You have Puka, who is a dog, top 10 receiver in the league. You have those guys, Kyron and them boys. So you have a high-profile offense when they perform at their best. But this Buffalo defense is supposed to be much improved last year. They've been really good this year. I don't want to discredit them just because of a one bad game, but it definitely gave you that funky feeling. I mean, Teron Johnson was getting picked on in that game. They failed to get consistent stops. 44 to 42. 40 points is a lot of points to give up when you're a great defense. So I think just that game giving you flashbacks, giving you nightmares, and hopefully it doesn't repeat himself. I don't think you're gonna go up against a high profile offense like that outside of
They got Detroit this week.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about in the playoffs outside of like Baltimore, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, it's definitely giving you that fear. Like, damn, is this the same Buffalo Bills team that brings you all the way up and then crumbles you back down?
That'll be my takeaway. Josh Allen's the best player in the world right now. I think he's the MVP. And looking at what this Bills offense been able to do this year, it reminds me a lot of 2015 Cam Newton, his MVP season, where he has done everything to put this team on his back. Just became the first player in this Rams loss to post 3 rushing and 3 passing touchdowns. And Carson Breber had a stat, which was kind of crazy to me. They were the 38th team to ever post 42 points, 8 yards of play with 0 turnovers. And among those teams are the first to ever lose that game. So what Josh Allen has done offensively, in the number 2 ranked offense in football, getting the most out of every single weapon in their offense. I know James Cook had a quiet day, but Khalil Shakur, Amari Cooper,
gonna crack a K this year.
Mac. It's been. I hope so. He's at 60 yards a game. He's one of my favorite players in football right now. Josh Allen deserves MVP. He was in the running a few years ago, and Aaron Rodgers won it. And I feel like he is so deserving. Where Lamar's had a renowned season, the Bills' offense is putting up even more points per game. And what Josh Allen's been able to do in this current situation with the supporting cast and the way that he's elevated it, I think he has to be the MVP favorite right now.
Yeah, just to add one more thing to the Bills, or I guess just the AFC in general, I don't think there's a favorite in the AFC, right? We went over last week, I did my NFL tiers in terms of Super Bowl contenders, and I had the Bills in that first tier. But after this game, I don't know if they're still in that tier in terms of clearly better than the Chiefs, clearly better than the Baltimore Ravens, because number one, although the defense has been good this season statistically, the 2 biggest tests, I guess, and I don't even know if the Rams was really a test, but now looking back on it, it kind of seems like it because they're such a prolific offense. Got smoked by the Ravens. You let up 35 points, I believe. This game let up 44 points. For the most part, the Bills have had a pretty easy schedule, right? Like, they beat Miami, divisional opponent. I get that. The Texans they lost to, who we don't even think are a really good team. Even at that time, I don't think we were that high on Houston. So this week against Detroit is going to be another huge test. I think if they beat Detroit, everyone's nerves get calmed down. But if they lose to Detroit by 10 points, for example, I think a lot of people are going to go into the postseason not expecting Buffalo to make the Super Bowl or expecting to be kind of the same we've seen over the last few years. And then last thing I'll say is Sean McDermott, quarterback sneak on the 1 yard line, 2 yard line when you had the 3 timeouts, very, very questionable. I get it. It's Josh Allen. It's a QB sneak. If you get it, you look like a genius. But on the other side, if you don't get it, you look like an idiot because now you don't have the timeouts and you have to do an onside kick, which you're not going to get because there's been like 1 or 2 all season that have gotten an onside kick. So a very questionable decision. My takeaway, though, I have a couple, but my first takeaway will be I love Kyler Murray. I think he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league, 10, 11 best quarterbacks in the league. We might just know who he is, though, right? Like, up to this point, he's never going to be in the top 5. I don't know if he's ever going to be as good as some other quarterbacks that are up and coming. Like, I think long-term Caleb Williams will be better. I think long-term Drake May's going to be better. And I see him right now. This was a Cardinals team that had the division in front of him. They were coming off of a bye on a 4-game winning streak, I believe. Yep. Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle again, lost all 3 games. And I mentioned it this week. I'll mention it again. You just never know what you're going to get from Kyler Murray week to week. You just don't know which version of Kyler Murray is going to show up. Or is he going to be the Kyler we saw against New York Jets, who I know their defense hasn't been fantastic, but completing damn near 90% of your passes and being perfect in basically every aspect of the game? A couple weeks prior against Miami, had another fantastic game. Or you're going to get the Kyler that we saw this past week against Seattle, where he has a couple really questionable turnovers early in the game, and you get set back a couple scores in the first or second quarter. His inconsistency week to week makes it really difficult to look at him and be like, this is a guy that year in and year out, no matter what, we're going to have a chance to really compete in the NFC. When you look around at all the teams that are getting better, either personnel-wise, coaching-wise, or quarterback-wise, it feels like the Cardinals are a couple steps back from being anywhere close to that top echelon.
I think in the NFC West, he's the 3rd, 4th best quarterback in that division. I think Stafford's better. I think Geno Smith is better. And you can have a debate between him and Brock Purdy, even though I think Kyler Murray is better than Brock Purdy. I think ultimately with the Cardinals, they were 6-4. They lose 3 games in a row. To give them the benefit of the doubt, it's against tough defenses. The Seahawks twice, who they're playing at an elite level, and then the Vikings. Those are some of the best defenses in football right now.
And all those games.
Yes, but looking at the Seahawks game specifically, because I think those games matter the most. The first one, the difference in that game was the pick 6 that he threw to Kobe Bryant, where he sailed it over his receiver's head. I mean, it was a terrible throw. This game, the first pick that he threw to Ernest Jones, I thought it was honestly one of the most incredible plays made by a linebacker this season. I think Ernest Jones just tricked him on that play. The Kobe Bryant pick where he just comes over on that crossing route, I didn't think that was a good decision. He didn't think that Kobe was going to have that type of break on the ball. But the inconsistencies are the reason why the Cardinals might not make the playoffs, because their defense has given them a chance to win almost every single week. Jonathan Gannon has done a great job on that side of the ball. Then you have the offensive line. They've played much better. They've been able to run the ball. First matchup against Seattle, they didn't run the ball well, but this matchup against Seattle, they ran the ball efficiently. Like Kyler Murray's turnovers. The Seahawks had 14 points off his turnovers. They lost this game by 12 points. That's the difference right there.
I honestly have such a hard time criticizing Kyler Murray, because I feel like I never want to say a negative thing about him to kind of just pour on. But I agree with you guys in the sense that this year, Arizona has, for the first time, really built a well-rounded roster around him with the run game, their weapons, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, their defense, which has been a punch above their weight because of the scheme. But I do have to agree in the sense that Kyler has had some wow weeks, but when you're paying a quarterback $47 million a year and you have that expectation that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but week in, week out, his passing is sporadic and up and down, you don't know what you're getting, you start to question whether or not Kyler is the one that can lead them back to winning playoff games and being a team where the NFC West, we talked about last episode, you've got the Niners who are starting to decline, you've got the Rams who are aging and have a lot of injuries year to year. It's a wide open division, and Seattle's running with it right now, not just because of their quarterback play, but it's because the fact that I think their coaching and quarterback have elevated the spot. Right now, I feel like Kyler's the one that's slightly holding them back.
Yeah, I think because I agree, defenses have been tough. Absolutely. Seattle's been playing great. Minnesota's been one of the best defenses all season long. Kyler Murray, franchise quarterback. You got paid. You got a top 5 draft pick in Marvin Harrison. You got one of the best tight ends in football. You got one of the better running backs in football in James Conner. Like, defenses, you're gonna play good defenses, right? Like, I understand, like, you're going up against some top dudes, but one of these teams are in your division. You're gonna be playing Seattle as long as you're in Arizona. You're gonna be playing Mike McDonald for the foreseeable future. Minnesota is another NFC team that if Brian Flores is there next year, you might have to see them again. So just because they're playing good defenses, Kyler Murray is too good for me to be like, well, that's just a tough defense. You know, if this was just a run-of-the-mill quarterback, like, no disrespect, if this was like Baker Mayfield or something, he was really hot, then he played 3 or 4 really good defense. I'm like, you know what, I'm kind of expecting that from Baker. But from Kyler, I have the expectation that he could go out there and he could beat good defenses, because I've seen him do it in the past.
And the narrative was once on Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler, but more so on Cliff Kingsbury not being able to have a as efficient offense as he did in the first half of the season. Mm-hmm. We just saw the Commanders drop 40 against a good Titans defense just a week ago. They were on their bye week this past week. And now Kyler's struggling in the second half of the season. So now this is a chance for one of them to rewrite the narrative. Cliff Kingsbury looks like he's on a much better track to rewrite his with Jaden Daniels. And now we could be looking back saying maybe defenses are just figuring out Kyler as the season progresses. My takeaway from week 14, I think the Buccaneers are winning the NFC South. We have already seen the Falcons spiral out of control. Kirk Cousins, 8 interceptions in the last 4 games, no touchdowns. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though their defense is not playing well, Baker continues to play at a good level because he does have a lot of interceptions. And I don't think that Baker has become this franchise quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback, and he's a good bridge quarterback, and he's going to have his highs. He's going to have his lows. But looking at the Buccaneers' schedule moving forward, I only see one more loss. They're at the Chargers. They're at the Cowboys. They face the Panthers and the Saints at home to end off their season.
Cowboys are sneaky.
Panthers
Panthers
sneaky too.
Imagine if they had Dak Prescott. They could be fighting for the NFC East right now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Panthers are
fighting for the NFC East.
Hey, listen, man. Dak Prescott changes some things.
What was the record when Dak went out?
What was their record when they all got hurt? Micah got hurt. No, I'm saying since DeRon Bland has come back and they've had Trayvon Diggs,
they probably
and
have the same record as the Commanders.
Yeah, no
shot at number 1.
I think they would be definitely a playoff team if Dak was healthy.
You got to stop.
But look, the Cowboys are a sneaky team. They could beat the Bucs.
Trick yourself. You're tricking yourself again.
Hey,
You're tricking yourself again.
I think the Falcons have a chance to win this division only if the Bucs drop 2. If they drop 2 and the Falcons can win out and they don't have a hard schedule either, then you're talking about a tiebreaker. and they own that tiebreaker because they beat the Buccaneers twice this season.
Look, it's over for Atlanta. They can't make the playoffs if Kirk Cousins start on the rest of the year. And I hate to say it and I hate to see it because Kirk is someone that we all expected to be an immediate upgrade. But the last 4 weeks, he has been not only fallen off, but he's, to me at this point, been their worst option at quarterback. I think you have to see what Michael Penix can bring, but it's a tough decision to make because you paid Kirk Cousins $160 million, so you pigeonhole yourself into starting him. But I think right now, with the way that he's playing, Michael Penix gives him a better chance to win.
You might as well just ride out the season with Kirk.
I disagree. Listen, and I know the Michael Penix Jr. Talk is at an all-time high right now because Kirk is not playing well. I thought they moved the ball efficiently on Minnesota. I thought Kirk had some costly turnovers on Minnesota's side of the field, and you can point to those instances. But they paid him $100 million guaranteed before the season. This is why we didn't understand the Michael Penix Jr. pick. It's not that they drafted Michael Penix Jr. It's the fact that they paid a quarterback as old as Kirk, coming off an injury like Kirk, $100 million guaranteed. You were tied to him for 2 years at least. And after the first year, this is already worst case scenario. And it's not like Penix Jr. was a project either. He was ready to play day one because he was a 5-year starter in college. The reason I say you don't bench Kirk Cousins is because you at least owe it to him to finish out the year. And I still think Kirk can play well. He has been terrible the last 4 games. Bad. I will agree with that. But you still have to give him the opportunity to bounce back against the Raiders this upcoming week. And he still has a shot to lead this team to winning the division. I do agree with the fact that next year, it's over. It's over.
Open
like
comp.
Kirk Cousins has played poorly enough this season where there's not even a discussion if he's back next year. You have to cut dead weight, and they're going to eat a ton of dead cap. They have to try to maybe trade him. Who's going to want to trade for that with that contract? Yeah. Who knows? What's the market going to be like for Kirk? But you give him the year to finish it out. I mean, what are you going to see from Michael Penix Jr. in these 4 games? Like, what is it going to be?
It gives you a better chance to win.
It gives you a better chance to win.
Probably.
For one. And two, he's a 25-year-old rookie who is NFL ready.
He has some juice. Like, Kirk obviously was never mobile. It's Kirk Cousins. But now that the Achilles injury happened, he just has no juice. Like, the accuracy is completely gone. He's had 3 good games this year, realistically, right? Like, Tampa Bay twice and Philly back in week 2. Those were his 3 good games. Outside that, he's completing less than, I think, 63% of his passes. I'm not sure what his completion percentage was this past game, but at least entering this game was at like 62, 63%. When you took out Tampa Bay, which has been one of the worst defense in football, and Philly, who for the first month of the season was not a good defense, but he's not mobile. His accuracy is gone. He's constantly sailing balls over receivers' heads or just way out of their range, and he has no zip on the ball. Like, he cannot make any sort of tight window throws. His bottom half, I don't know if he just doesn't trust the Achilles or the power that was once there is just no longer there, because when you see him try to like hit an in-breaking route over the middle of the field, he's not throwing that ball hard. Like, there's a reason why he's been getting so many of these interceptions jumped, is because the defender can see the ball coming, and it's easy to jump it when it's going 30, 40 miles an hour instead of 60, 70 miles an hour. So I do think Penix gives them a better chance to win, but I do think they're going to ride it out with Kirk just because of the game and the money.
I agree, but it's just the fact that you drafted Penix knowing he's not a project, and the Falcons are trying to win now. And I feel like with the way in which their offense is playing purely because of the quarterback play, and you're trying to make the playoffs in a wide open division, Michael Penix gives you the best chance to win the NFC South.
You should also be like, listen, the NFC South has been bad for a while in our lives, right? Like post Drew Brees days, right? So it's not likely that this division turns into a powerhouse overnight. Like the Saints are a mess. The Panthers, even though they look promising, aren't going to be like a 13-win team next year. Now do I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but there's only a certain amount of times you could actually try to win a division. The Falcons haven't made the playoffs in like 7 years, 6-7 years. They have one of the longer playoff droughts in the NFL currently. So you have an opportunity to go and get it. I wouldn't just sit on my hands and be like, well, I got to start Kirk Cousins because we gave him this money. If you think Michael Penix gives you a better shot, regardless of what happens in the locker room, regardless of how it looks to the outside, you gotta see it through.
If Kirk plays poorly against the Raiders, I agree
if you
with
lose
you.
the Desmond Ritter, you have
to. If he loses that game, then you have to bench him after that.
Might be too late
no
at
matter
that point,
what.
though.
True.
Potentially, yes.
If the Buccaneers win.
This is the issue, though, with the Falcons that they find themselves in right now with Kirk Cousins. The fact that you're going to move on for him after this season. Michael Penix Jr.'s first year as a pro, you can't take advantage of that rookie quarterback contract because they could have used that money they paid Kirk to sign upgrades on the roster. His second year, the Falcons only have about $8 million in cap space this offseason, and they're going to have to eat dead cap because they're going to have to move on from Kirk Cousins. So Michael Penix Jr.'s second year in the NFL, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that rookie quarterback contract. Yeah. You can only start making real moves around him in his third and fourth year, and then you got to pay extensions that are coming up like Bijan and Drake London. Mm-hmm. So the Falcons have found themselves in where they've wasted 2 seasons of a rookie quarterback contract because they signed Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, not a great look.
That's one of the risks they took when they made that deal, and it has made 0 sense.
Another takeaway I had, Joe Burrow, I love the fact that he went out to the media and vouched for T. Higgins to come back to the team, putting the pressure on the ownership. Like, listen, I know that we're going to do what it takes to bring back T. I'm going to do what it takes. We've had those conversations. If the Bengals don't bring back T. Higgins this offseason, now it's putting some real pressure on our organization to get things right around Joe Burrow.
Do you guys think he's going back? Because I'm looking around at the market. He's probably going to be the best wide receiver available. And there's going to be teams desperate to throw around money. Like, I think Denver, with their Walmart owners worth billions of dollars, are going to give him as much money as he wants. We heard New England, I think, came out today or yesterday saying that they're going to be all in on T. Higgins. So if the Broncos and the Patriots, just for example, say,
Carolina's probably going to be in the hunt too.
Carolina, that's a fact. Like, we'll give you close to 30 a year. Like, we'll give you money that is top of the line, even though maybe you're not the top 5 receiver, but this is what the market wants. Are the Bengals going to be like, shit, well, we got to set a record-breaking contract for Jamar Chase. We're paying Joe Burrow all this damn money. So as much as I liked it from Burrow, because I think that was the right move to do, I would be a little bit surprised if Cincy broke the bank and gave T. Higgins the money that he probably needs to stay.
They did it to themselves. I mean, they waited. They didn't pay T last offseason, granted.
They didn't pay Jamar. Now the price on Jamar is jumped.
He's about to get triple crown. So now the money, he's going to get more than Jettas. That's a fact. It's going to happen. Now you're going to have to pay T. Higgins. Not only do you have to pay T. Higgins, your franchise quarterback put the pressure on you to pay T. Higgins. So now if you don't pay T. Higgins, you kind of stab him in the back. Now he's looking at y'all funny. Not to mention, you still have holes on this team that's bigger than T. Higgins. Holes. Because Jamar Chase, realistically, top 2 talent in the world, can carry an offense. Him and Joe Burrow, you can put somebody next to him that's regular. No offense to T. Higgins. They'll be fine. But Joe Burrow wants him. So now he's advocating for him. But you have legit issues on this defense that's not going to get better overnight. And then you have Pittsburgh, who's now fucking nice. Well, they've always been okay, but now they're nice. Baltimore with Lamar, it's going to hang around. Like, now you have the Chargers coming up. You have Denver coming up. You have Buffalo, who's still going to be around. Jets, what is Miami going to do? What are the Jets going to do? Like, New England, that's another team who maybe they have a jump next year. They found their quarterback. So now you're sitting here and you're like, well, damn. Like, Tennessee, they're probably a quarterback away. Houston's going to make some moves. What are we going to do? Are we going to pay T. Higgins and strap ourselves to 270? You're basically going to give $80 million to 2 receivers.
God bless. There, and then you combine that with Joe Burrow's salary. Most of your salaries is going to come down to just 3 players on the roster. They need to replace 10 players on that defense. Outside of Trey Hendrickson, like every position, it needs a pretty substantial upgrade. I think the easier fix is just getting a new defensive coordinator in there. Even though Lou Anarumo has done some good things, but I mean, this is a defense that they're doing the same things from week 1. Yeah. It just looks like a poorly coached defense. I don't think it's all on the players. We see what Jonathan Gannon's doing with the Cardinals defense. You're not about to tell me the Cardinals have more talent on their defense than the Bengals, but he's able to get the most out of them. So I think, Lou Anarumo just wasn't able to get a high floor for that scheme. And he had amazing players like Jesse Bates who can just handle multiple responsibilities every given play that most normal defenders cannot do. I agree with what you said, Dehls, about the AFC and not having like a true favorite, because I feel like each week I've tried to kind of cross off teams. The Ravens, I don't really trust them. They're one of my, teams that I'm okay with crossing off. The Chiefs, I'm like, okay, this defense looks really bad. The offensive line and tackle position is pretty shaky, but Patrick Mahomes just made history this past weekend. He is now tied with Aaron Rodgers with the most 12-win seasons by a quarterback with 5. Mahomes already has 5 12-win seasons. He leads the NFL in game-winning drives. The Chiefs are 26-26 when they're trailing in the fourth quarter in the Mahomes era. Even if the defense is bad, Mahomes, he's going to be able to sustain drives. There's no other team that has had more 10-plus play touchdown drives this year than the Kansas City Chiefs. They're able to milk clock. They're able to mask the weakness of their defense by keeping them off the field as much as possible. And we're seeing Mahomes still like on an off year. He's the clutchest quarterback in the NFL.
Fucking hate that guy, man. But no, I agree, because all the other teams have issues, right? We talked about Buffalo, just outside of them in the playoffs. It's obviously been a while since they've gotten there, and Josh seems to, not that Josh Allen's fault, but they always come up just a tick short against Kansas City. So you have just some natural doubt there. But then their biggest test, bless you, has been, pretty big failures from the defense. Baltimore's defense is terrible. The Chargers, do you trust enough what they have on offense? When you look at these other teams around the AFC, like, shit, John, is this year the Steelers really can make a run with this offense, with this defense? Because everything else around the AFC is it's a little shaky. Special teams. Chris Boswell's the best kicker in the NFL right now.
Waitman, I punter 52 yards of net punt. He's been great. The Chiefs are a team that right now is in sole propriety. They're in position to get that 1 seed and going to Arrowhead in January to go up against Steve Spagnuolo and Patrick Mahomes is a position that no AFC team has been able to consistently handle.
Only one man can do it.
And he's not going to be in the playoffs. So, Joe Burrow.
Talking about Joe Burrow.
I was talking Josh.
I think he can, but he hasn't
I don't
done
know
it
where
in
you
the
go
playoffs.
with that one.
He hasn't in the playoffs beating
Evan
the
McPherson,
Chiefs.
you should have said.
Yeah, it would help if he could be
Joe
good
Burrow
now.
played really
Anyways,
Josh played better.
This Chief team finds the strangest ways to win games, but that's what contenders do. And this is a team that always plays their best football one way or the other in the last month of the season. So I think most people are ready to kind of like hope for the Chiefs to finally have that one down season, but it's not going to come if they're going to be that 1 seed in that top spot.
I have 2 trivia things for you. Really, one trivia thing. Can you guys guess the 10 highest graded pass rushers according to PFF this year? The grade is accumulation of sacks, quarterback hits, pressures, hurries, win rates, batted down passes, etc.
Is this interior and edge?
Yeah,
Just edge rushers.
Jalen Carter.
That's
not
Just
edge
that's
rusher.
interior.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said both.
No.
I'm
Edge
in Drew's
rusher.
seat. Let me start off with one of his players, Nick Bonito.
Nick Bonito's
No,
not here.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Daniil Hunter.
Daniil Hunter's not here.
Give me.
Can I guess?
Wait. Yeah. Go.
Alex Highsmith?
Alex Highsmith is here.
Yeah. So is Nick Herbig then.
Nick Herbig is here. He's number 2.
I don't think TJ Watt's there.
Max Crosby's not here. TJ Watt is here.
What number was Alex?
Alex Highsmith,
We have-
he was...
You have 3.
3 Steelers players.
Maybe 4.
Top 10.
Alex Highsmith is 6th. TJ Watt is 7th. And Herbig is 2nd.
Yeah.
So the Steelers have 3 pass rushers up here in the
Not
top
fucking
10.
surprised.
Nick Bosa.
And we got Preston Smith though.
Nick Bosa is number 9.
Give me Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett is number 3.
Michael Parsons?
Micah Parsons is number 4.
What are the ones we're missing?
Missing one. Trey
You're
Hendrickson?
missing
Right,
5
I was
and 1.
thinking Trey.
Hendrickson is number 5. Number 1 is an easy one. He hasn't played in a while.
Aiden Hutchinson.
It is Aiden Hutchinson,
it's
still number 1.
Damn.
Pretty easy.
Well, he left injured number
They
1.
said NFC Championship game. He could come back.
Not moved.
That would be
So
pretty-
far,
that'd be incredible.
You have Aiden Hutchinson, Herbig, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, Alex
third best
Highsmith,
pass rushers
TJ Watt,
I love it.
and Nick Bosa. You're missing 2 more names.
Oh, I thought you said we had the whole list. Because I had trivia.
Jonathan Grenard.
I was thinking
Bernard
of a
is not
Viking.
here, but
Andrew
he does
Ving.
lead the league in pressures.
I'm thinking of a Viking or a Seahawk or some.
It's none of those.
Nolan Smith. Let's try have fun.
Nolan
here.
Smith is not here. I would say...
Zach
one-
Bond.
He's a linebacker, middle linebacker. My goodness, Riff.
Every Eagle.
So I'll give you a guess. You have
Slay.
2 players left.
Hey.
One of the players, he's been a top edge rusher for a while.
Khalil Mack.
Probably number 10.
That's a good spot.
And that wasn't where my hint was going.
Oh, shit.
But he's been a top edge rusher for a while. He's probably under the radar now because this team is not worth talking about week to week.
Josh Hines Allen.
He is on this list as well. So the top 10 in order: Aiden Hutchinson, Herbig, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Hendrickson, Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Josh Hines Allen, Nick Bosa, and Khalil Mack.
Yeah, where Will McDonald is.
I think he's in the top 15.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah,
check
McDonald has been really good as pass rusher. Khalil Mack, his pass rush grade has been awesome, but also he's been one of the best run defenders in the league too. And he's just, man, he's old right now, but he's still playing at elite level. He's like 34 years old, still playing like one of the best edge rushers in the league.
That stat puts a smile on my face because when I look at recent NFL history, it's hard to come up with better pass rushing groups on the edge than this current Steelers pass
They're
rusher.
the best.
You have
They're
three
the
starters
best.
and the best edge rusher in football too. You got depth. It's insane. Honestly.
You know, Pickens isn't playing this week, probably.
Yeah,
He's
we'll
got a
get to
grade
that.
2 hammy.
And if it's grade 2, we got some
That's
questions.
what I've seen.
Belt to ass, buddy.
Don't sleep on Van Jefferson and Calvin
be cool.
Austin.
No, sleep on Van Jefferson. Go to fucking snore. I
Gator legend.
wouldn't sleep on some of the other players.
We have
in
two
the
demons
offense,
back
like
there, dude.
Freiermuth. Yeah,
Low-key 3. Slay's been good.
Freiermuth, Jalen Warren's been terrific, and
I'll be
if
honest. If we had Pickens, I would have been like, the Steelers have a voodoo chance to make it happen. Without Pickens, I don't know. The
I'll be
offense
honest,
is-
Pickens
it's
and
no, it's
Quinyon would
fair,
have been
but
a
I
movie.
think Mike Williams is a really good emergency backup that can be a poor version of Pickens.
How much did Mike Williams play yesterday or Sunday?
He had 3 catches for 36, but a big chunk play on a third down that got called back because of a little like offensive PI.
It's gonna be fun, man. I'm
I
excited.
think
yeah,
with his
facts.
play style, he fits in very well into that Pickens role. And that's
only
not
played-
going to give you the yak,
only
but
played
it'll give you the
29% of
contested
snaps.
jump ball winning, and that can be enough on third down.
Now, Rev, let me
So-
ask you: is your trivia NFL centric?
NBA, so wait.
Okay, so we could do it later. This is the last thing I wanted to share with you guys.
Here we go.
Receiver has been a trending topic. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, best 2 receivers in the world. We understand that. How many wide receivers right now are better than Puka Nacua? Last year, he shattered the rookie receiving yards record. This year, he's taken an even bigger leap. And there's this narrative out there that he's just a slot guy, but he's not just a slot guy. He's lined up out wide almost 67% of his snaps. And on PFF, he's the second highest graded receiver, only behind Nico Collins. And his yards per route run is better this year. He is one of the best receivers, but how many receivers are better than him right now?
I think Jettas is better.
Of course.
Chase
We
is
know the
better.
top
That's 2.
Nico is better.
CD's better.
AJ is better.
AJ is a 5.
CD is better.
Why you hesitate?
He's better. I
So
think
that's 5
What's
off
going
rip.
on here?
he's better for sure.
Okay,
No, he's better.
okay.
CD's
So that's
better.
5
Yeah,
off rip.
I
You
see.
don't think that Puka Nacua belongs in that tier with Nico Collins?
I think he does, honestly.
Yeah,
They're
he
in the
does.
same tier to me, but
He
I'd rather
definitely
have
does.
Nico personally.
Is Puka better than Ayuk?
Yes.
I'm with it.
I think I would take Puka.
He's better
Especially
than
after this
Amon-Ra?
season, I think he's better than
I think he's
Amon-Ra.
better than Monroe too.
Okay.
I think Puka Nacua.
I think that's the tier
He's in the Monroe's
Yes.
tier for sure. I think Nico Collins is in a higher part of that tier too.
I think Puka Nacua right now is a top 5 receiver in football. You can argue him as
When he's
high
been
as
healthy,
5.
yes.
I don't. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would, if I had to do it, like I would do tiers. So like tier 1 is obviously
Two
Jettas,
guys.
Chase. I really do think Tyreek Hill is still in that tier. I think.
We forgot about Tyreek Hill.
did
I
forget
think
about
he's.
Tyreek.
I think he's garnered the respect to still be in that tier, and he's still at his best, probably the most dominant receiver in football. So I'll keep him in that tier. I think tier 2 is where you can put AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb. I understand putting Nico Collins in that tier. Personally, I think he's the top of tier 3 with Puka. That's where I would have him.
I got Nico in that tier.
So, but I don't mind that. I won't have no pushback too much on it. But I think tier 2 with me would be CD, AJ. Then tier 3 is like Nico, Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Puka.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not
how I
ready
would
to
do
put Puka over Tyreek Hill, but if this continues, I mean, Tyreek's had a couple of really good weeks, especially this last week, but Puka's playing at that point where you can put him in that top 5 discussion. So
He's so good. I mean, he's just like, he comes back from injury. He's automatically a number 1 weapon again. I really do think the reason why he doesn't get maybe the respect he deserves or like in that CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown tier is because when you watch him play, there's nothing that stands out to the naked eye that makes Puka like this elite receiver. Like he doesn't have Tyreek Hill speed. He doesn't have route running like Justin Jefferson, but
doesn't have AJ Brown's body type.
exactly. He's
Nobody
just an all-around great receiver. He has a great feel for the game. We know his hands are insane. He has great body control, but he's just not this athletic, huge, specimen that we see all around.
I feel like
the league.
that's kind of like CD too. Like CD doesn't have anything that really pops off the screen.
He's
When
just-
you
he's just
watch
really
it, he's
smooth, though.
he's
I think
well
that's
he's
his thing.
well
He's, like,
rounded.
super
He's like
smooth.
the hands are
Technique is
good,
route
the
running.
smoothness is there, the route running there, but he's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. Like they're kind of the same.
Puka Nacua, his improvement this year on dig routes,
He's a dog.
out breaking routes, but at the catch point, he's taken such a serious leap. Did you see that catch that he had against the Bills where he toe tapped on the sideline?
Oh, yeah.
There
Did
was
you see the throw?
well, his
Yeah,
footwork,
the throw was
his
awesome.
footwork
Crazy.
is
there was
insane.
no margin for error on that. Like
Yeah.
Puka Nacua, you could put him up there with the very best at the catch point. He catches anything
They
that's
both had
in
to
his
be
vicinity.
His footwork is
If
sensational.
he's top 5, John, who you taking out? That's the question. Say if you had him top 5, who you taking out?
I say you can put him in the discussion, but I would not have him over CD. I would not have him over Nico, and I would not have.
So he's
him-
not top 5.
No, I say you can put him
If
in the
Nico's in your
discussion.
top
You
5,
can
who
put
are you
him in the
taking out?
discussion with.
I think
getting
he has
interesting.
Nico at 6.
No, he said you have Nico at 5.
Yeah, I think so.
So who are you taking out? This is
CD
getting
Wait, hold
interesting.
up.
You're fucking up yourself.
Jettas,
Yeah.
Chase, Tyreek.
Yeah, well,
That's 3.
Jettas, Chase, Tyreek, AJ Brown,
CD.
and 5
CD.
will be
Nico.
CD. Nico will be 6.
So you have Puka at 7.
Because we forgot Tyreek in that first 5
True.
players.
Yes, yes.
He would
He's a
be
dog.
in that top 6.
You know what I noticed? That after this season, the wide receiver rankings, I think the top 7, like how we're discussing, is pretty easy. But once you get to the 10 to 20 range, there's so many players that have broken out this year. Like JSN is now in that discussion that it's going to be
top
hard
5
to
receiver.
rank that group of receivers because there's a lot of players that have taken some serious leaps in their game.
I feel like I could rank JSN pretty easy.
Where do you think he ranks?
Like 17. Like, I don't think he's better than...
He's better than DJ Moore.
No, he's not. Did he have a better year? Yes. I don't think he's better than DJ Moore. But that's not the person who I was going to name. I was going to say, like, I don't think he's better than Smitty. I don't think I'll put him over Waddle. Like, I think those are guys that are in the 15-ish range. You know?
I don't know. Waddle these last 3 weeks hasn't playing better, but 3 weeks ago, if you would have told me, I'd be like,
No, Waddle definitely struggled without Tua. Even sometimes when Tua is there.
Even with Tua,
he definitely struggled.
You
But
have to have Terry McLaurin somewhere in that top
I think
break it
DK
out.
is still
Top
a dude.
10.
You know?
But JSN is taking. We're gonna talk about Seattle later, but JSN is taking over the wide receiver 1 role there. Like it's not DK anymore; it's JSN.
DK really, he's a weird guy anyways. Like he's just a weird receiver to rank because you kind of rank him like you get what you get, but you kind of rank him on what he could be sometimes as opposed to like what you expect more from him. Like,
Exactly.
And he just sometimes he just doesn't do it. But the attention he gets is really like number 1 level on the team. So I don't know. I feel like we love numbers, and I think numbers are really, really important. I think sometimes when you just have like a guy like Drake London's going to be ranked really high because of the year he's having. But I think a lot of it, sometimes you have to also weigh into where these players are at. And, because Drake is the number 1 on his team. JSN is emerging as the number 1 on his team. I think some of the guys that are number 2s and they have a legit number 1 in front of them, they're going to kind of get the slack of it because they don't have the same numbers. But I think skill for skill, you can probably base these guys against each other, and you'll get a good result.
Garrett got to go higher too. You saw how he smoked Jalen Ramsey.
Garrett's so fucking.
He's violated.
Where are we
Jalen.
playing Garrett?
Did you see the Zach Rosenblatt athletic article?
I did not. Top 15.
He
He's
said
already
that
top 10 to you.
He was never top 10 to me.
Yes, he was.
Garrett.
Maybe like
Maybe.
10, 11-ish, but
What the fuck? You dropping to 15?
there's other players that have
he's
had great
concerned
seasons.
that Garrett might request a trade.
Really?
Well, we do know the Athletic, Diana Rossini, Zach Rosenblatt aren't the highest on the Jets.
They're
and
anti-Jets.
They're definitely a little
Garrett or
anti-Jets,
Amon-Ra?
but
I'm on Raw.
Really? I really feel like Garrett is. Listen,
I'm going
Amon-Ra's cool.
Garrett or
I feel like Garrett's just more dynamic.
Amon-Ra's
you know?
a dog, but
Yeah, but
Garrett
Amon-Ra is the better player.
Garrett's just the athletic demon he is. I
should
respect
have
that,
200 yards on Sunday.
I feel like if his quarterback was better.
Even that touchdown, or not the touchdown, when he smoked Ramsey on the right. If Rodgers just would have let him up the field, that's a walking
like
touchdown.
Garrett or Terry.
Garrett.
I feel like last summer you would easily say
Yeah,
Garrett. Now you're thinking about it.
The volume.
Based off the season that Terry had, I gotta say Terry.
Just skill.
I don't.
But
have to.
Terry, skill. I think Terry.
Okay.
Like Terry
Interesting.
at the catch point. I think Garrett still has to improve at the catch point. He can be inconsistent with those 50-50 passes.
So let me ask you a side question. Sorry, John. Just
No, you're
side
good.
question. So we had a list. You guys had Garrett at 10. But I feel like he's done nothing this year to warrant him to drop lower.
No,
So why would you drop him lower? Is it because his quarterback
I
is so
haven't really
bad?
made my list, so I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is just like off the dome ski.
But I think after the season, even though it was cut short with Ayuk, I think Ayuk is dropping drastically in my list. Even though
of skill or just attitude.
it was a little both of not attitude at all. It was just how he started the season,
Yeah.
and then also getting hurt and now missing a year. And other receivers are playing really well. He has to prove himself again to kind of reach the ranking that he was at.
So is it fair to just leave him unranked?
I think you have to rank him somewhere.
I would have to rank him, but like Garrett Wilson, from here on out, like him or Ayuk, I think that's a discussion, and I think I would probably go Garrett based off the season that Garrett is having right now, because Garrett is having a great year. I wouldn't say it's like an elite level year, but it's just a tick below. It's not that far off from a spectacular year.
I think he's on pace for like 1,200 or close to 1,200.
Yeah. Okay. So general question. We said we had Jettas, we had Chase, we had CD, we had AJ Brown, we had Reek. There's no order, by the way, just guys. We had Puka, we have Amon-Ra, we have Ayuk. Let's just say those are the 9 guys, right? Who would be the next receiver? Actually, let's take Ayuk out there because we just said he dropped out. So those are the top 8 guys. Who would, if you had to pick one, who would be the next guy that jumps in and takes somebody out? So you have to pick somebody to take out and Put somebody in.
I'm looking at teams right now because I can't just think off the top of my head.
I'll take your time.
The Steelers, I think George Pickens can have an argument. I think there's an argument there. Zay Flowers comes to mind, but I don't think Zay Flowers is as good as Garrett.
I think Pickens can take Amari Cooper's spot in that top 10 to 12.
Who?
Amari Cooper's spot. George Pickens takes that top
Amari
spot.
Cooper's top 12.
He was like a year ago.
When?
A year ago, he's top 12.
Okay.
This year, he's not.
Well, I'm saying in the top 8. Who's taking a spot in the top
That's
8?
close.
The guys I named.
I think Terry after this year is going to be in that conversation.
Who does he take?
Terry's 7th receiving right now.
At
so I can see
9?
that.
Yo, this is
No,
gonna,
I need somebody to take out the 8.
this is going to sound crazy.
Here we go. I love it.
It's Brian Thomas Jr.
Who's he taking out?
Ayuk?
You have to pick a name. No, we took Ayuk.
DJ Moore.
You have.
DJ Moore's been playing so much better.
Mike
Can I
Evans.
get that?
Okay.
That was like he was in Devontae was also in the
Devontae.
top 10 coming into this year. I think he also is knocked out. At the
Okay.
I
top 10.
agree.
I
Okay.
think Devontae moves down considerably.
So you guys think the 8 are solidified? Like
For the
nobody can
most
knock
part.
them out.
Yeah, but
Ayuk's
think
the
about
only
the
one that'd fall
receivers.
out.
This is why I don't want to rank it now because I have to think about it. But like you look at the Falcons, Drake London is somebody that's going to move up. DJ Moore, of course, you still have to rank him. You have to kind of see and get out
playing
all
so
the
much
muddy
better.
waters that's happening with the Bears right now. The Niners, nobody really jumps out. Even though Jawan's having an incredible year right now. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't think he's done enough his rookie year, and I think the vertical threat that he can pose on defenses, I think that's a serious question mark. But he is a technician. JSN, DK Metcalf, I think still deserves respect, even though he doesn't play to the level of his physicality that I'd like him to. You have Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, he's
You
gonna
have
jump
Terry
out.
McLaurin. I honestly think after this season, Terry McLaurin probably becomes a solidified top 10 guy.
Okay.
Like, I think this season has put him in that tier.
Above Malik Neighbors, you think?
Yeah.
Because I think Terry McLaurin, he is a top 12 to 15 receiver, but I don't know if he has the consistent of volume. I look at the games like the Eagles, the 2 Giant games they've had early in the season.
The game
and
against the
there's
Eagles,
too
though, they
many-
double teamed him like crazy.
Okay, even the Giant games as well. Both
Like
times
crazy
they played
might
him.
be capped.
No, they did.
I feel like
every
there's
play
too
he was
many different
bracketed.
weeks where Terry McLaurin has not had the volume to put him in that top 7, top 10 group compared to some of his peers
Yeah,
in this
I mean,
range,
Cliff-
like a Malik Neighbors
Yeah.
or Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas maybe too, you can kind of point to maybe not enough volume, but that's more of like a scheme.
Like,
thing,
I think the better conversation is like, which receivers are the biggest risers after this year? I think McLaurin is one of them. I think George Pickens is another one of them.
But McLaurin,
I
I
think
feel like is
JSN's a riser.
McLaurin, I feel like
JSN's
is,
on the
is
top one.
person dependent because some people probably already had him at 15. Jumping
a
up to
fact.
10 ain't really.
No, if you go from 15 though to
Like I feel like
8 or
other
9.
guys probably like JSN probably was what 30. Now he probably might jump up to top 20.
The thing is, I think we're having a lot of receivers kind of fall off, but I don't know if we really have enough guys rising. Like Devontae Adams has fallen off, Amari Cooper has fallen off, DJ Moore this season has fallen off, but it's a lot of the young guys you're looking at. Like Brian Thomas, you can make the argument is a top 10 to 15 receiver, especially with the quarterback play he's had this season.
He's a tier 1 talent. Brian
he's a
Thomas Jr.
dog.
is a tier 1
I
talent.
think Garrett Wilson is as good as any of these guys were mentioned to. I know Jets bias and all of that, but when you watch him play, he could get open just like anybody else in the NFL.
he could be in the top 10.
He's great after the
I'm fine with
catch.
that.
Yeah.
You look at the top 20 receivers in receiving yards, the ones that rose the most. Jerry Jeudy, unexpectedly. He's number 4
last
right now.
4 weeks.
That's crazy.
Jameis Winston. Marquise.
JSN is 6. McLaurin is 7th, but they just had their bye week. Garrett Wilson is number 8. Darnell Mooney and Drake London are 9 and 10. Zay Flowers is 11. Brian Thomas Jr. as a rookie is 13.
That's with him hurt and he had banged up ribs and he wasn't getting
With
the ball. and
quarterback
shit.
play
and with
that's
Mac Jones
in and out.
and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Number 15 is George Pickens. Number 19 is Neighbors, and number 20 is Lab McConkey.
Lyle McConkey's one I could take like Keenan Allen's spot the next year or so.
he can go.
Keenan's a good one too.
Like, there's a
Fell
lot
off.
of receivers that have risen up. I think, like I said, the biggest risers would
Might be Mooney after the last 2
JSN,
years.
Drake London and JSN, I think, were probably the biggest risers this year from like young guys taking a noticeable leap.
I think
but Drake
Mooney-
London was more so quarterback play.
Mooney's an example of a player who was a good number 2 and then had his production fall off because of the quarterback play. But then this year he's established himself as one of the best number 2s in football. I think you could put him in that discussion. The skill set is always there. It's just a matter of really situation.
Yeah, I think the ranking is going to really depend on just how high are you on the rookie receivers and how much you're willing to project on some. Because there's some older guys like McLaurin that he's going to have the production, but are you higher on Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. or Marvin Harrison Jr. moving forward than him? And does that cause you to now rank him a little bit higher? I think that's going to be there. But no, there's been a lot of receivers that have risen up. There's been some that's fallen off, like Devontae, Keenan Allen, I think are going to fall off in a lot of lists. Mike Evans, I don't think so. I think he's had a solid enough year when he's been healthy to kind of stay packed. Yeah, Chris Godwin's really good too. So it's going to be interesting, but I think a lot of receivers are really playing well right now. The Philadelphia Eagles, their star receiver came out and made some comments after the game. They beat the Panthers 22-16, but it wasn't enough. Bryce Young almost led a 97-yard game-winning drive, had Xavier Legette caught on a wide-open pass. We're probably talking about this game as a different outcome, but the Eagles ended up winning the game. A.J. Brown was asked what can be better. He straight up said, passing. That's what needs to be better. Brandon Graham goes on his podcast and talks about how Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were friends before, and now they got to make sure that personal doesn't get in the way of business, but he's now taken back and walked back those comments, and you can argue that people took it out of context. Where do you stand as the Eagles representative on the podcast?
Feels like you've been a little bit of an Eagles fan over the past couple weeks. You've been super locked in, and I love to see it. Great turnaround from where you used to be, man. Great
it's funny that you mentioned that because I've been talking highly on the Eagles for weeks now. TikTok doesn't seem to think so because I don't think we've posted any clips on TikTok of me talking about the Eagles. And now there's going to be a clip on TikTok where we're talking about this situation. But the Eagles, though, I will say, they deserve their credit from where they were from the bye week to now. All those reservations I had early in the season, I still think that I was valid to have those reservations. They switched things around at the bye once they started starting Cooper DeJean. And every week since they've been on their win streak, I've been talking about this elite level defense. I even made a statement that I trust the defense more than the offense. The offensive rushing attack is elite, but the one problem with the Eagles right now is the passing attack, and Riv, you'll speak on that.
Yeah, and I think, listen, this has happened probably every year since A.J. Brown has been here. It's been and I say this all the time, wide receivers are divas. They're probably the biggest divas in the NFL because they require a lot. They really are very dependent on who's at the quarterback position to get them their targets, get them their yards, get them that money. So I think them being divas is justified, and I get it. They're the kind of the superstar, the picture of the group, and I get that. I get all that. But I feel like A.J. Brown has kind of been a little bit of a diva in Philly. And, with respect, he's one of the, we just talked about, he's one of the 5 best receivers in the world. This man last year went on a 8-9 game stretch of 100, and he was dominating the NFL. The year before that, he really broke out into the scene, and he was amazing. This year, before he got, even when he's played this year for the most part, he's been dominant. They've been undefeated with him on the field. So the impact is there. I think the contributions is there. I think he has a point. I think he has some validity. I think the passing does need to be better. I think it's been a little bit, you find yourself this year looking at this offense and you're thinking Jalen Hurts is at quarterback. You have the best offensive line in football. You have Devontae Smith. You have A.J. Brown. You have Dallas. This should be a team that has 30-plus touchdowns, 30 to 3,500 passing yards. You should see Smitty having 80 yards, A.J. Brown having 100 yards. It should be more fluid. You should be scoring 30-plus points a game. But it just hasn't. The rushing attack and passing attack hasn't clicked. A lot of the games, you see it in our win streak, we started off the game trying to pass, and that may lead to sluggish starts in the first quarter. And I always say this stat, like after the first drive, we're one of the best offenses in the league, and that's driven by our rushing attack. It's been dominant, it's been elite, it's been efficient. So I think, you kind of go with what works. But I think it's a little bit of both. Me and Joel was texting about it, and, there's definitely some sour moments in the play calling. There's some sour moments in the route concepts. Yeah. And I get it that Kellen Moore, for me, it feels like Kellen Moore relies a lot on A.J. Brown and Smitty to kind of just run a simple route and then make plays after that, get the ball and just make plays after. And they're good, they're talented, and I get all that. But in that Panthers game, it just felt weird. It felt like Jalen Hurts wasn't releasing the ball. It felt like he saw the read but didn't trust in the read, and it felt like he just didn't make plays. And I want to say A.J. Brown wasn't the only one that was upset. The problem that why people aren't upset at Smitty, because he was also another guy that was pretty upset. Smitty is pretty quiet. He's not going to go out in the media and talk about it. He's going to keep it in home, and that's another issue I had with Brandon Graham.
That was bad.
Regardless of if it's true or not, as a vet, you should know you keep that at home. You don't sit there, especially go on a podcast and say that, whether you were right or wrong, whether you were interpreted right or wrong, you keep that in home. This team is 11-2. You don't want nothing screwing this up. And Nick Sirianni, he came out this morning or yesterday saying they have that 2022 vibe. He's trying to break the tension, and I get it. I respect it. He's trying to take the attention off of that. But A.J. Brown was right. Not right, but he has some validity. This passing offense has definitely left a lot to desire. I felt like it's left a lot on its plate, and it needs to get better. I mean, A.J. Brown was open a few times. You know, the play calling hasn't helped Hurts. You know, and of course, injuries have also, I felt like, held this passing game back. You know, Smitty's been in and out the lineup. AJ's been in and out the lineup. Dallas yet to come back to the lineup. So it's definitely hasn't been a consistent thing from time to time. But you're sitting at 11-2. I think right now, you know, I hope that this team, with the adversity that it's faced this year, they take this situation. They got 4 weeks to figure it out. They come out fire and they get the passing game going. Because if you don't get this passing game going, I get Jalen Hurts has been pretty clutch in fourth quarters, but a lot of it has been with his legs. Not too much with the passing game. I would love to see this passing game get going because I feel like if it does, we have the rushing attack. We are really becoming like the most unstoppable team in the league.
Right. This is the Eagles' one blind spot, the one and only blind spot at this roster. Because as you highlighted last couple of weeks, going as far as said, this team can be a Detroit Lion team. I agree with that under the expectation that Jalen Hurts plays at the MVP level he did 2.5 years ago. But in the 2.5 years since then, I think we've just consistently seen his regression as a passer. And that's not even to demerit Jalen Hurts entirely as a player, right? Because the running game and what he can bring on the ground does amplify Saquon Barkley. But purely in the passing game, we've seen it, maybe not as much in this Panthers game, but in recent weeks, they haven't found a rhythm in those first couple of drives where the game script is trying to get Jalen Hurts going. I think partly it is a scheme thing. I think partially it's Hurts' limitations in the pocket where this is going to be something that's present in the playoffs. The question is, how is Philly able to really mask that well enough by utilizing Saquon more in early in games? And then I think very importantly, how does Nick Sirianni deal with this? Because, you know, we've seen a lot of different receivers like Ayuk and Pickens have moments in the past with elite head coaches. And obviously I'm not suggesting Sirianni's that, but those coaches are able to keep that wide receiver in check. And I'm curious to see how Sirianni is able to really work around this because this is one of these problems in Philly that's been consistent. And I don't think Sirianni is a good head coach that can really figure that out. So I just want to see how he's able to really adjust because I do have a little bit of concern there in that part. And really not only the scheme, but then really the leadership structure and the culture kind of being able to shield that and mask that from the media.
Yeah, the Eagles are still great. 11-2, go to the NFC Championship game, all of that. I do think, John, you make a good point. I love Jalen Hurts. He's my second favorite player in the NFL behind Lamar Jackson. Jalen Hurts also hasn't progressed as you want a franchise quarterback to progress, right? I think normally when you see a quarterback come out, especially a second-round pick, that first year, that first really 2 years in the league, you just want to be like, this guy belongs here, right? This guy is a starting level quarterback. There's traits you can work with, and you see progression. And I think for those first 2 years, you definitely saw it, right? His first full year starting, he wasn't, blowing anyone out of the water, but it was obvious this wasn't Zach Wilson, right? This is a guy that could play in the NFL. His second year fully starting, of course, they went to the Super Bowl. He puts up MVP numbers. Shane Steichen gets a job. You bring A.J. Brown, and all of this happens, and he just has the best year ever. Since then, there's been some issues out of his control, right? Like you changed play callers a couple of times. This season, you've dealt with injuries to your wide receiver room, a couple to the offensive line as well. But just individually as a player, Jalen Hurts hasn't progressed as I would have expected him to, or as I would have wanted him to. Because I saw 2 years ago a guy in Shane Steichen's system go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, put up 35 points. If it wasn't for one damn fumble, you probably win the Super Bowl. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer, and you're going to the Eagles Ring of Honor and all that shit, right? But since then, he hasn't reached those heights. Really hasn't come close to reaching those heights. And I know when you look at the numbers, right, his passer rating, it's like over 100 since the bye, and the touchdown reception ratio is still pretty damn solid. But when I'm watching Jalen Hurts play, it's still a lot of the issues that I feel like were there, even when he was having a great season in 2022. Number one, I don't think he gets through reads quick enough. I think he has a tendency to look at one side of the field for too long and then try to make something with his legs. And that's the second issue. He breaks the pocket too often, too quickly, and 99% of the time he rolls out to the right, so defenses are already knowing in the back of their head, we know where Jalen Hurts wants to go. He's very rarely breaks off to the left. Every once in a while he does, but it's mostly out to the right, even when he has a clean pocket. I feel like those are two of his biggest flaws that he's had for multiple seasons now, and for someone who had such high flashes early in his career and got the bag, and I still think is any given year could be a top 10 quarterback, I would expect him to just improve on that more than he has, right? I do think Kellen Moore this season has had some good moments, some bad moments. Of course, we talked about the injuries and whatnot, but Jalen Hurts just individually as a player, I expected more of him to this point. I expected him to take that leap where he's solidified top 8 quarterback in the NFL, where he's not in these conversations any given week with the Jared Goffs and the Brock Purdy's and the Tuas, but he is clearly over that, and he has solidified himself there with maybe not this season because CJ Stroud hasn't been as great, but for example, CJ Stroud from last season where he's like, oh yeah, no, he's top 8 quarterback. Like, he's obviously better than Tua. So I just expect a little more from Jalen Hurts at this point. I still think he's great. I still think you can win a Super Bowl with him because this Eagles team is so damn good. But I wish we've seen more for him develop as a quarterback, especially in the pocket, 4 or 5 years into his career.
The Panthers were really close to upsetting the Eagles. If Xavier Legette catches that pass, this is a loss. And even though the headlines are on Hurts in a passing attack, it's magnified. We're talking about the problems and pinning blame on people. Jalen Hurts had 108 passing yards on 21 attempts against a Panthers defense that they have been letting everybody go crazy on them. Like, everybody.
Saquon had a day.
Bo Nix had 4 touchdowns against them, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to not Bo
Marcus
Nix.
Mariota scorched that.
Yeah,
defense.
Marcus Mariota, when Jaden Daniels went out, looked like a Pro Bowler. Yeah. And Jalen Hurts couldn't play well against the Panthers. He had his longest time to throw of the season, 3.7 seconds. Lowest air yards per attempt of the season, 5.6. I think you're being too kind, Dehls. If we're
top 8 dogs.
Jalen Hurts gets grace because of the 2022 season, because we know the heights that he can reach. If you're measuring Jalen Hurts' play this year, he's a bottom 20 quarterback. He's a bottom 10 quarterback in the league. There are so many quarterbacks playing better than Jalen Hurts. Jaden Daniels is playing better than Jalen Hurts. Russell Wilson is playing better than Jalen Hurts.
He is.
Sam Darnold is playing better than Jalen Hurts. Sure. Tua is playing better than Jalen Hurts, especially since he's come back from injury.
Sure.
You can argue Baker is playing just as good as Jalen Hurts. There are so many quarterbacks playing better than him. Yeah. And when you look at the Eagles, they're 32nd in pass attempts per game. The Packers are 31st. But they're able to air the ball out a little bit more, and Jordan Love's able to get a little bit more out of that passing attack than Hurts is with the Eagles. The Eagles have a mediocre passing attack. That's their Achilles heel. Teams want to get them into obvious drop back situations. It's much harder said than done because Saquon Barkley and that offensive line, they are a tank. But in the first half of games, the Eagles are always trying to establish the pass first. They had more first half pass attempts against the Panthers than they had second half pass attempts. But they noticed that this isn't getting going. They are the slowest first quarter team in the league in terms of points scored. They don't play well when they start off the gate. And it's because they put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands and they want to make plays. I can give criticism where it's due. Kellen Moore, I'm not a fan of him. Dating back to Dallas, when I saw him run 4 curl routes, one with an offensive lineman, I was kind of out on him then. I think Kellen Moore, and that will always stick out. It was a playoff game against the Niners. That moment will always stick out to me. With the Eagles, I feel like a lot of the route combinations are out-breaking routes, which they're very hard throws for quarterbacks. In-breaking routes, curls, hitches, and then you have like a clear route that's never a true option on the read. Kellen Moore's offense is a pure progression-based offense. Shane Steichen in 2022, it was RPO-centric. It was Hurts, you're reading this linebacker, you're reading this slot corner. Based off where his leverage is, you're either going to hand the ball off or you're going to pass it. It was a lot of plays that were served on a platter for Hurts. Last year, Brian Johnson, I don't think he was a good play caller, so I'm not going to put much stock in that. But this year, Kellen Moore has asked Hurts to be a progression-based quarterback. And now he's overthinking. There are moments against the Panthers where A.J. Brown is wide open. I think a better quarterback that plays better in that game, A.J. Brown goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's how open A.J. Brown was on some of these moments. There was a moment where it's single high safety. The safety rotates over, doesn't even worry about A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown's one-on-one, and Hurts doesn't let it rip to him. That was an automatic throw last year. That was something that I thought he relied on too much last year. A.J. Brown is having a historic season, not by the numbers, but when you look at his yards per route run, he's at 4.47. Last year, the league leaders in that, CeeDee Lamb was at 4.0. A.J. Brown's having an even better year this year, but it's not showing up in the box score because he's not getting the ball. And I do think that there are moments where he is the first read on plays and he's not getting it. Jalen Hurts is not throwing it. He's kind of just holding the ball. I think there are some situations where it's warranted because I do think it can get a little bit nitpicky. NFL Pro, all 22 film is accessible to everybody out there now. So everybody's going to have their own opinion. There was this one play in the red zone where it was a pick route for A.J. Brown and he was wide open. And you expect Jalen Hurts to make that throw. But based off the defensive alignment, the corners were pressed up on A.J. Brown and Jahan Dotson, I believe, who was an inside receiver. And Devontae Smith had off coverage in the slot. It was a 3 wide receiver set to the left side. In that situation, Hurts' job is to read the off coverage player. If they're playing press man, that usually indicates that those defenders are going to switch assignments. So A.J. Brown shouldn't have been open. He was, because the Panthers botched the assignment because of the Panthers defense. So the correct read was Devontae Smith off coverage, but A.J. Brown's wide open. You know, you expect him to throw a wide open touchdown at A.J. Brown. But that is the kind of thought process behind Jalen Hurts and why he's doing some things. He's kind of playing a little bit too robotic. He's playing specific to the process of the play, which is not a bad thing, but I don't think that's ever been Hurts as a quarterback. Like, Hurts as a quarterback is a big play machine, but there are things that he naturally struggles with. Like he struggles with anticipation throws. He struggles with letting the ball go quickly. He does have a little bit of a slower release. His pocket presence is not the best. He's not the most accurate quarterback. So there are areas that he really struggles in. So they have to try to mask those things for him. But I think this is how I describe the Eagles in an analogy. They're like a white shirt. If you buy a clean white shirt, you see how those are the freshest shirts in my opinion. When you just have a white shirt, white tees,
like polo tee,
it's very easy to see if you get a stain on it because it looks so good. So like a stain is going to stick out. That's the Eagles. They're 11-2. They're playing high level football, but the stain right now on them is that Hurts is not playing good enough. And in order for the Eagles, I think, to make the Super Bowl and win it, I think he needs to start playing better. But they're also so stacked that he could play like this and they could still win because this is really a juggernaut team.
We need him at his best against Detroit, even against Minnesota, like
especially Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, Hurts could go two ways. He could go down the path of being just a complementary piece to the offense, where, like Joel, you mentioned, he's a few times a game he could make a big play. He could hit AJ on a go shot. He could hit Smitty over the middle of the field. He could hit Saquon, on a wheel or something and make explosive plays happen and really uplift this Philly team, which I agree, Riv. I think you need that to beat Detroit. I think even though we have some questions about whoever comes out of the AFC, when it comes down to the Super Bowl, you're going to be going up against Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. You're probably going up against one of those three quarterbacks. You're going to have to make big time plays. So Jalen Hurts can either be a reason why you win the Super Bowl by making those big plays, or he could just be part of the team where he's basically doing what he has done, which is he's efficient. He's not turning the ball over. Yep. He's, keeping the ball out of harm's way. You're keeping these offensive drives going because the offensive line, Saquon Barkley, and the defense are all so damn elite. They don't need to do much, but it does feel like if this is the path that it goes, the ceiling is capped because we see how explosive Detroit could be offensively, even though Jared Goff has limitations.
I think I need that, and this game sticks out to me this year because it really was a ridiculous game. Game against Jacksonville. We're in Philly. We had the classic green on, and fourth quarter, needed a score. He goes big play to Smitty. Smitty, I think he had the big play on the. It was on the left side. Smitty made a big play. Smitty does what he does. But then hit Smitty in the back of the end zone. Big touchdown. Like, where is that guy? Where is the guy that's like, fuck
He's
it?
He's still there. I believe it.
Like, you got A.J. Brown, a top 5 guy in the world. You have Smitty, a top 15 talent in the world who can catch damn near anything in his radar. Throw the fucking ball. Like, I'd rather you making it. That's why I don't give a fuck about Josh Allen turnovers, because he turns the ball over, but damn, he's giving his receivers a chance. Like, he's throwing deep balls to Khalil Shakir. You mean to tell me we can't throw a deep ball to Smitty and AJ Brown? Like, come on, brother. Like, come on, let's make it work.
That Shakir touchdown was nice. He took the Jets.
That was an amazing one.
Shakir about to get a caveman.
After the catch,
the ball
Shakir
placement on the Hollins tuds are amazing.
He's so small.
He's
too.
so legit
shifty.
after the catch. He can break so many tackles. With the Eagles, like the vibes are just off. And I think it's on AJ Brown to control his emotions as well. I know that AJ Brown thinks that he's as good as Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
100%.
And he sees what Darnold's doing with Jefferson. He sees what Burrow's doing with Joe Burrow. And he's like, why can't Jalen Hurts do that with me? There was a touchdown to Grant Calcaterra, the backup tight end that filled in for Dallas Goedert. It was his first touchdown of the season. This play stuck out to me the most because it's his first touchdown of the season. He's celebrating. He's so happy. An Eagles player on the back end is over here like this. And then AJ Brown's just like, he was open. He was open first. And Jalen Hurts held on to the ball, and Grant got open, and he got the touchdown. But it's plays like that where you have to understand what matters the most. And what matters the most is that touchdown just put you up 22-16 in the fourth quarter, and you got to be happy for your teammate, even if that wasn't you that got the ball. Even if that wasn't the design. You have to find a better way to mask your emotions, because you can't just throw Hurts under the bus, even if he's playing poorly. You have to pick him up, and you have to believe in him. And at the end of the day, this was a win. They're 11-2, and you're calling the offense out, and now we're talking about it. Now Brandon Graham's talking about it. Now it's becoming a bigger issue than it has to be. Hurts, I think the limitations as a quarterback, they've been there. Yep. But Kellen Moore has a static passing offense, and he doesn't make things easier for his quarterback whatsoever. That's why I was never a big fan of the marriage between the two, because that's just not the style of quarterback that Hurts is. So hopefully they figure it out. I was talking to River about it, but I think, I know they're probably prioritizing Saquon setting the record this year for rushing, and he could do it. He can do it. You have to make sure the passing attack is at its best in the playoffs.
How about we start the game running and then get into
That's a possibility. And they have to really make it a point of emphasis to get Hurts in his passing attack going. Even if it's at the risk of not breaking a rushing record, you have to make sure this is at his best. Yeah, you can't just ignore the problem.
As a fan, I need that record. I'll be honest. We need that for Saquon. But I definitely think have some more balance. I also think AJ was probably upset because we should have beat the shit out of them, and we're sitting here in a tough dugout game with the Panthers, literally almost lost.
Bryce was making some throws, man. I can't even lie. He was making some.
Bryce Young is playing awesome right now. He really is.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings, they're 11-2, same record as the Philadelphia Eagles, but I feel like they've been talked about a little bit differently. They still feel a bit under the radar. John, do you feel like the Vikings are being overlooked?
The answer to this question is easily yes. I remember a few years ago when this team won 13 games in 2022, and we said that is a playoff team which is not going to go anywhere because of their defense and how easy they are to scheme against. But this team is different. This team reminds me a bit of last year's Packers, where they have the right recipe to go on, not only win multiple playoff games, but be a threat to a team like Detroit, who they have a lot of familiarity with and went toe-to-toe with earlier this year. And specifically, the biggest difference to me between the last couple of years and this year is not only do you have a star running back in Aaron Jones who uplifts this offense, but Sam Darnold has made their passing attack even better in these last couple of weeks. And him having a full year in Kevin O'Connell's offense has gotten to the point where we're looking at a quarterback playing at top 10 level. Right now, you look at that top 7. After you get past Dak, who's not even healthy, there's so many different guys you can put in that group, like Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins, who we did not Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold, who we did not have in that group coming in this year. But with the way that he's played his last couple of weeks, Sam Darnold looks like a top 10 quarterback in football, and the way he's been able to extend plays. And you get Jordan Addison going the way he did this last week with Justin Jefferson. There's so much variety in this offense when you bring back a Hockenson. But the recipe to this team giving teams fits is their defense of Brian Flores. So I know that the Vikings are not the team you put in the same tier as the Lions and the Eagles, but they're so clearly a top 3 team in the NFC to me, and I would be shocked if they don't win a playoff game because there's nothing that this team's currently missing.
I believed, man. Listen, I believed. Only because, of course, Jettas, my dog. I did really like Jordan Addison. I think I called him better than Jay Flowers at one point during their rookie years. Really like Jordan Addison, what he can provide being that number 2 for Jettas. And he's starting to really wake up to being that. And I think that's really important. Also, TJ Hawkinson coming back just brings you a different dynamic to this offense. I feel like coming into this year, we kind of felt like Darnold can play at a really good level. You know, probably not elite, but definitely a good enough level to where they can be competitive. You know, they can hover in the hunt. Definitely didn't see 11-2, top of the NFC.
28 touchdowns.
Yeah, 28, like an elite top 10 level. Definitely didn't see that. I thought he'll have some struggles, and he's had his moments where he's definitely struggled. But him, Jefferson, Addison, they just complement each other so well. And I think, you know, Darnold's big playability and the fact that he's able to just sling that football, he's been pretty calm in the pocket. I think that's really important. And of course, the motivation and the leadership that Kevin O'Connell has on this team. Like, he's just been in Flores on the defensive end and the blitz packages they have. I think they're being overlooked, though. It's kind of a double-edged sword because of Sam Darnold. I think, like, legitimately, they're being overlooked because there is a track record, a history of Sam Darnold just having those moments where he sees ghosts and where he fizzles out and where he doesn't, you know, he's not able to recover from a couple mistakes. And he's shown this year that he can bounce back. But we know the playoffs are a different atmosphere. You know, what are you going to look like going to Detroit in a playoff environment? What are you going to look like going to Philly in January and December in a playoff environment with them Philly fans heckling you and stuff like that? So I think it's okay. And I think when you just look at the top 4 teams in the NFC, specifically just these 4, I don't want to get into the others, but Green Bay, Detroit, Philly, and then Minnesota, I think Darnold's been probably playing the best out of all those 4. Him and Jared Goff have been playing the best this year. But I think walking into this year, you know, we had all 3 of them above Sam Darnold by a good amount of spots. Mm-hmm. You know, I think we thought Jordan Love was clearly the best out the bunch. And now you're going into a playoff atmosphere and you're thinking, damn, can Darnold replicate that? I think in terms of just talent for talent, I think, like I've said it before, Eagles and Lions are a tier above Minnesota and Green Bay, you know, but I think the coaching aspect, I think Detroit and Minnesota, they have the top coaches on both sides for me personally, and then Green Bay is creeping under there for sure. And I think for me, they're being overlooked just because of the fact that can Sam Darnold do this in a playoffs? Which I do think it's a valid question. You know, I think regular season, playoffs, 2 different things, even in the NFL. And also, can the talent on Minnesota, will that be able to catch up to them? And I mean, really on the defensive side, I think they have really good players, but they don't have a Jalen Carter. You know, they don't have, well, Aiden's not going to play, but they don't have an Aiden Hutchinson. Like, they don't have a true game-wrecking player that I feel like that can come out in the play. Maybe I'm wrong, of course, but I feel like that can come out in the playoffs. We thought Green Bay would have that with Rashawn Gary, but he's kind of been up and down, you know, but for the most part, I don't think they have those 2 guys, you know, so I think that's why they're being overlooked. But nonetheless, Minnesota has pretty much exceeded all expectations. I do expect them to win their first playoff game, you know, whoever they play in the bottom. And I think going up against Detroit, Green Bay, they'll have the luxury of, we play these teams twice a year. We know exactly what they're going to do.
And the Vikings are 11-2, and they have some great wins. They've beaten the Packers. They beat the 49ers. They beat the Texans back when we thought the Texans were actually a respectable opponent. They beat the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Vikings, I know I said that. It's the first team I said. I think they are one of the most complete teams in football that we're not talking about that much because we have the Eagles and the Lions. They have a top 10 defense. They have a top 10 offense. Jonathan Grenard, I think, is in that territory where you can mention him as a game changer. He has 60 pressures this year, which is the most in the NFL. My concern with them is just if they can stay healthy. Stephon Gilmore went out. Ivan Pace Jr., he is not playing right now, and that's really tanked their run defense. And you look at their losses this year, it's been because the run defense hasn't been able to hold up. So can they stay healthy? Can they have their blue chip players in the playoffs? I think that's a valid criticism. Usually with quarterbacks reviving their careers, they're always secondary to the outcome that's going on. I'll look at the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry was the driving force. I thought Tannehill played really well, but Derrick Henry was the driving force.
Helped out A.J. Brown.
Last year with the 49ers and Brock Purdy, CMC was the driving force of that offense. Even though the passing attack was elite too, the rushing attack was the driving force of their offensive production. The Vikings this year, their rushing attack is middle of the pack. It is inconsistent. It is more bad than good. And the driving force of this offense has been Sam Darnold. It's been more than just the guardrails. Let's make sure Sam is protected and not making mistakes. It's turned into, okay, we're going to open up these gates and we're going to have Sam Darnold play and make mistakes and make high-level throws. And the throws that he makes every single week, really as of recently, more so, in the last couple of weeks, since the Jaguars game, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, he is making throws that there are not many quarterbacks in the league that can make. You can argue he is playing like the best quarterback in the NFC, only behind Matthew Stafford. Stafford will always get that respect. You can argue he's playing better than Jared Goff. He doesn't have Sonic and Knuckles to rely on to get that going. He doesn't have that elite offensive line. You can argue he's playing better than Jordan Love. You can argue he's playing better than Jalen Hurts. You can argue he's playing better than Jaden Daniels. You can argue that Sam Darnold has been the second best quarterback in the NFC. That's how good he's been. And usually I love using context to numbers because I don't think numbers tell the whole story, because Baker Mayfield has great numbers, but Baker Mayfield this year to me has not played at that level. Sam Darnold this year, according to PFF, he's the 6th highest graded quarterback in the league. He's played at a top 10 level, and that's why we're having these discussions about whether or not they should re-sign Sam, because J.J. McCarthy's still young, and Sam Darnold is 27 years old. This is the same age as Joe Burrow, who's solidified. And we know Sam Darnold hasn't reached that yet, but he's a very young quarterback, and when you sign him, that's potentially an option for 4 to 5 years if he can continue this level of play. Having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison sure as hell does help, and we can't overlook that aspect of it. But Darnold has done more than just play within the system. He's playing above and beyond the system, and the Vikings are as complete as any team in the NFC. They don't have the top-end talent of those top-end teams, but with the schemes that they have on offense and defensively, Brian Flores game planning for one specific team in a playoff game. There's not many coaches that you trust more than KOC and Brian Flores in the playoffs.
They have the best coaching in the NFC, arguably the best weapons, and like you just highlighted, top 3 quarterback play. I mean, that's more than enough. If they play the Buccaneers in that first round wildcard matchup, I am very comfortable playing the house on the Vikings. Second round, you get a matchup like Detroit or Philly. That game can go either way. I could see Minnesota upsetting a team like that because they're going to be in those one-score games. It's just a matter of how Sam Darnold builds off this, because he has had some really poor games like that Jaguars game, which was kind of bringing us back to those days with the Panthers and the Jets. But then we've seen him kind of get back to that draft pedigree level where he has the skill set and all the physical traits to be an elite level passer. So it's just a matter of how consistently he can maintain this.
Yeah, they have the best, if not the second best coach team in the NFL, Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. I mean, I think that's where it starts. In the beginning of the season, though, we gave them a ton of respect, deservedly so, because you mentioned the teams they beat, right? They beat the Packers, they beat the 49ers, they beat the Texans. Since then, though, I think more than anything, they've been doing their job, right? Like when you go through all of their recent wins, they've been beating up on teams they've supposed to be beating up on, right? Like they beat Atlanta this past week. Arizona's a solid win. Chicago, a divisional game, so I give that to them. But Tennessee, Jacksonville, Indy, and then before that, they had back-to-back losses to Detroit and the Rams. And that was kind of that mini bump in the road when those were two, playoff contending teams, because at the time, that was when the Rams just got back Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So they had all the weapons out there. So this is like the first time since week 1 we really saw the Rams at full strength. They lost those 2 games and have rattled off the rest since. But in these last 4, post that Jacksonville debacle that they still managed to win somehow, they're 8th in EPA per play, they're 6th in dropback per EPA, and they're 4th in dropback success rate. Sam Darnold has been playing as good as basically any other quarterback in the NFC. I agree with you guys. I think getting Jordan Addison involved as much as they've had has been a big, big plus too, because we see Justin Jefferson, the coverage he gets week to week is fucking crazy. Like, it's insane that everyone points like the numbers that Jettas and Chase do. And of course, Chase sees some crazy coverages like too. But yeah, Jettas, I mean, there's constantly 2 dudes on him. He's constantly getting bracketed. There's always help somewhere. So it's difficult for him to get open. The fact that Jordan Addison, who is one of the more talented receivers in the league. This is a guy that's Biletnikoff winner in college, of course, first round pick. USC, one of my favorite prospects in that draft class behind JSN. His rookie year was solid, right? He had like 70 catches, 900 yards, nothing crazy, but not a poor rookie showing.
A lot of times.
For sure, a lot of big plays. But over these last 4 weeks, 3 of the 4, he has 8+ targets. I think he only had 5 or 6 of those games his rookie season. So he's being more involved in the offense. As you mentioned, Rev, of course, getting TJ Hawkinson back. And then finally, Justin Jefferson, for the first time in like a month, was able to show up and have a big game. First time having a touchdown in a while as well. So everything's clicking for Minnesota. I think more than anything why we haven't been talking about them is because for the last probably month, we've taken them to win all of these games, and they've won all of these games, even though a couple have been a bit closer than we expected. But I mean, when you have this well-coached of a team, when you have Kevin O'Connell, who's one of the best offensive minds, and Brian Flores, one of the best defensive minds, you're sitting here at 11-2. You have some of the best weapons, and Darnold's playing at this high of a level. I said it last week. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Detroit. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Philly, because that's how complete of a team they are. That's how great they are on both sides of the ball. It's going to be difficult because you're going to be going on the road in both situations, but I think they have as good of a chance as really anybody in the NFC to knock down one of those two teams.
Darnold.
He's fucking good, man.
You went to the archives this week, didn't you?
Man, I really did. Yo, I was looking back at Instagram stories where I was debating Darnold and Josh Allen. I thought Darnold was going to be the truth.
Darnold was
took
my
an
favorite
offensive lineman
quarterback
over
in that
Josh
class.
I know I did. David
Never forget
Bakhtiari. He was the best left tackle in the league at that time, to be fair. To be fair.
He took an offensive lineman over Josh.
David
We had a
Bakhtiari.
debate.
What?
We had a debate. The debate was this was the 2020 season. So Josh Allen's second year, Darnold's second year, when the Jets had the great offseason with, Le'Veon Bell,
never
CJ
wavered.
Mosley and shit like that.
Generational
We
offseason
basically
for you
said,
guys.
who's more likely to be in an MVP conversation? Is it Darnold or is it Josh Allen? And I was like, David Bakhtiari is more
David
likely to be
Bakhtiari's
in the MVP conversation. No, Darnold, I'm glad he's playing well. It's just another like organizational failure from the Jets. Like, I think that's what it just shows. But how much are you guys buying what Darnold is doing right now? Translating to another situation that's good.
What's good?
New York with
New
Brian
York
Dable
Giants, good.
and Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors, Brian Dable.
I presented that
It's just
opportunity a
Malik
month
out
ago.
there.
It wouldn't be as good as
mean,
it is now.
They have Wandale Robinson.
They love Tyron Tracy. I think he's good.
You gotta stop.
Wandale's a good.
Because
Wandale's a good
I'm asking
spot.
that question because
You said he's better than Najee, so
Who?
you guys said you and Drew
Tracy?
said Tracy's better
Tracy's
than
solid.
Najee. He's oh, that's bullshit. You guys said he was a stud like a month ago. He's
I'm
better than
asking-
Najee. Now he's just all. He's good.
Now she's also solid.
he's also been good.
All right.
I'm asking because this is a weak quarterback draft class. So if you're a team like the Giants, you're a team like the Jets, you're a team like the
That's
Tennessee
presenting to you.
Titans,
Yep.
do you draft a quarterback in the top 10 or do you just sign Sam Darnold?
He signed
I
Sam
think-
Darnold, I think.
And this is where it's like a tricky situation because you mentioned something that was really important. I think it kind of entails what the Vikings are. They didn't box him in. Like, I feel like when you watch Washington first couple weeks, they kind of boxed Jaden in with respect, though. They have Terry and who else? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really much to go off of. So you kind of just keep the training wheels on a little bit. I think Denver, they did it, and that was wild. But with Minnesota, like, why would you box him in and you have Jettas, you have Addison and TJ coming back? It just doesn't make sense. Let him go, let him loose, see what you can do. And Sam Darnold has exceeded that expectation. So I think you have a situation where the situation is also great, but Sam Darnold has shown vast improvements in his game. Now, would it translate to a different situation?
Like the Browns, for example.
No, I don't think so because I don't think every situation is the same as this one. I think, obviously, when you go to a lesser talented place, I'm not going to sit there and visualize Sam Darnold being a floor raiser, but he's definitely right now a ceiling raiser. He's raised the ceiling for the Minnesota Vikings. And I think just other situations don't have the same coaches. Like right now, Cleveland, Stefanski's good, but he's not KOC. I don't think he's nowhere near that at this moment. Like, they don't have a Jettas. They don't have an Addison at this point. They don't have a TJ. Like, the joke was nice. Let me actually show some respect. But even Vikings' offensive line is fluky at times. You know what I'm saying? Cleveland's offensive line, I don't think it has been good this year. It's been dealt with injuries, to say the least. Like New York, their offensive line, if Andrew Thomas isn't there, shit. Yeah, Malik Neighbors is nice. He's no Jettas. You know what I'm saying? Then Wandale Robinson, I'm glad you mentioned him. But he's all right.
Theo Johnson.
Yeah, like Tyron Tracy's okay, but people still respect Aaron Jones' game. So would it translate? Maybe not so, though, because I feel like those situations are tier or two below situations for Minnesota. Now, if you're talking like, if he goes to a team like Tennessee, then it's like, all right, I think that's a much slightly much better situation than a team like Cleveland, which I think is in a shit show, or a team like New York, which I think they need a full rebuild.
I don't think Cleveland's a shit show though with their coaching. I really like that coaching staff. The way that they're playing
I just think
right
it's a
now,
cloud around Cleveland.
You kind of distract yourself and separate the Deshaun Watson cloud.
It's so
Cleveland
hard to do
has yes, but Cleveland has really good coaching and decent weapons, and I think that's enough for a quarterback.
I think the most
So
realistic
hard to do that.
options would be the Titans and the Giants, because I don't think he's going back to the Jets. Yeah. Unless we do something and, we convince him, we bring some great coaches. But I don't think he wants to go back to the Jets. We do not deserve him.
Him and Geno.
It's between the Giants and the Titans. Do you think they should just bypass drafting a quarterback and they should just give Darnold the keys for 2 to 3 years?
I don't mind. If I'm the Titans, I'm looking like you got Dylan Raiola, 2 years. Lagway, 2 years. Nico from Tennessee, 2 years. Arch, 2 years or maybe a year. Somebody else just came. Somebody else is out there, but I'm definitely missing another quarterback or two. You can wait 2 years. Get Darnold the money.
This quarterback class is mediocre. There's some interesting prospects, but I presented this drill a month ago. I said, if I'm the Giants and Brian Dable, I want to get myself a quarterback like Darnold who can come in, run my offense very well, and can even elevate the system. But it's a tough question for Minnesota because do you try to give Darnold a 1-year deal? He's not going to take that. He wants multiple years. And if you give Darnold a 2 to 3 year deal, now the question becomes J.J. McCarthy's development. And I think that's a great problem to have, but it's an interesting one to monitor because if Darnold doesn't maintain this, then it makes the decision a bit easier.
You traded up for J.J. You have, right? Yeah. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, they did. You traded 2 firsts?
Yeah.
It was 2 firsts?
You could also, listen, this quarterback class is terrible. Could you trade J.J. McCarthy in the offseason and get a first-round pick?
A bunch of assets.
What would be the point of trading for him then, though?
Because you keep Darnold. You're like, we just saw what Darnold did. He's a fucking top 5 MVP candidate.
I feel like that you kind of fucked yourself then because obviously hindsight, you didn't know Sam Darnold would play like this. So now you're sitting there like, well, we traded a first or 2 for J.J. McCarthy. Now we're like, well, Darnold's playing like an MVP level player.
It depends really what Darnold wants. If Darnold wants like 40 M's a year, it's like shit.
Because if he wants Geno money, I don't hate it.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you could get him for 3 years, $100 million or whatever Geno ended up signing, I think that's a great deal. But if you're expecting Sam Darnold to go to New York, go to Tennessee, he's getting this $40 million a year contract, and now you're building the offense around him, expecting him to elevate your offense. That's where I have questions. I think where he is right now, where you have really the perfect situation, that's where Darnold is going to thrive. Like, I do think Darnold's obviously a better quarterback than when he's with New York and Carolina and everything like that, but it's not a coincidence that he's having this great of a season because his situation is amazing. It's fucking great. So for him, I would rather him stay in Minnesota, keep doing what you're doing, even if you have to take a bit of a pay cut, because you're going to have success and your career is going to be completely different if you go to Tennessee or New York, especially New York, who hasn't been able to get anything right in a decade plus.
You compare the weapons and the coaching in Tennessee to Minnesota is night and day.
Yeah, they got Ridley and Westbrook-Akine. Tony Pollard.
Ridley has been quietly playing well.
He's playing well, yeah.
So Traylon Burks towards the ACL match?
It's over.
Never started.
So this past weekend, Darnold threw 5 touchdowns against the Falcons. That was the most any Vikings quarterback has had in the game in 20 years.
Yeah.
It also marked the first time for the receivers, Jefferson and Jordan Addison. 2 Vikings receivers went for 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns in a game. I thought this brought up an interesting conversation. This is going to be, would you rather wide receiver duos edition, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Oh, but Addison is also very good.
He's good.
Yeah, he's very good.
You got number 1 in the league.
But Justin Jefferson, he is number 1.
Go ahead.
First duo up, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Vikings.
I would take Jamar and T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is definitely better than Jordan Addison.
You know what? I'm not a big fan of T. Higgins' game. I'm a big play receiver. I get all that. I just feel like the offense still thrives without him. I don't think he's that much of a game changer. It's like if they both had Burrow, give me Minnesota.
I gotta go with Cincinnati. With the way that Jamar's playing, it's really a matter of T versus Addison. I think T's clearly better.
I'm gonna go with the Bengals too, Chase and T. Higgins. Next duo up, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Minnesota.
Going Minnesota. I think at this point, Jettas is better, and I think T. Higgins is better.
I'll lean Minnesota.
He said T. Higgins.
Yeah.
What do you think? Addison's better?
I think Jordan Addison and Waddle, the gap is closed. I think the gap is getting closer.
So what about T. Higgins and Jordan Addison?
I think T. Higgins is better. I think T. Higgins is better than Waddle.
But I feel like the gap with the way Addison's been playing, he's kind of creeping on both, low key.
I think T is better. T, outside of this past week, when him and Chase are on the field together, he was outproducing Chase.
That's fair. He is coming off a shit year, though.
He's been hurt so much. He's been out of the lineup.
What duo are you going with, John?
I'm also going with the Vikings. Sorry, I should have been out there.
Are you going with the Vikings?
There's not many guys I'll take. So yeah.
Okay.
Give me Minnesota.
Next duo up, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Philly bias. Give me Philly.
I'm taking Minnesota.
Devontae Smith versus Addison. I think that's what's making me lean.
That's a gap.
I want to say Philly.
It's a gap.
I love AJ Brown. Jettas, in my opinion, is a tier above him.
Right.
This is just my Philly bias. I got to pick my boys.
I'll go with the top end talent, and I'll slightly lean Minnesota. But Devontae Smith, I'm taking any day over Addison. That's the thing.
I'm going with the Vikings too. And last duo up, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
I'm taking the Vikings.
I don't trust Cooper to be playing, so give me the Vikings.
Health is a big thing that Rams do.
For both of them, honestly.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp's been healthier than
if you turn injuries off in real life, I mean, you might be able to go with the Rams, but I have to go in Minnesota with how well they're playing because they got that same production and they've been a little more available. Of course.
Are you going Rams or Dolphins duos?
I'll go Dolphins.
I might go Rams.
Oh, that's close.
I'm not afraid.
That
of
one
Rams.
I feel like is really close.
Very close.
That is close. Damn, Tyreek fell off.
He's still a guy.
I'm trolling. I'm trolling. Just because at the end of last season, he was still like, I don't know. I guess you guys said he's still tier 1. And yeah, Jettas, Chase, Tyreek, he's probably still there, but he's closer to tier 2 than he is to tier 1 to me.
Nah, man.
Respectfully.
Mike McDaniel has turned around the Dolphins offense completely from last year, where they're a dink and dunk team this year because they can't run the football. So basically, the quick pass game has replaced the rushing attack with all these screens. And to give McDaniel credit, the screens that he's coming up with are very clever, creative, and unique.
Spamming those screens to Achane against the Jets. Like every single time he's out wide and he kind of just runs in, they throw it, and the lineman comes and he goes up the middle of the field. No, I mean, last year he was so fucking efficient.
This year, he hasn't been a good runner.
And that's their rushing attack, and they've basically replaced their explosive playmaking passing attack with Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane and peppering them to death, and then occasionally getting Waddle and Tyreek Hill involved. And it's not like it's worse because the Dolphins' offense is elite this year still. It's one of the best offenses in the NFL, but Mike McDaniel has kind of tweaked the offense where last year it was just we're spamming posts and motions and Tyreek Hill down the field. And this year it's a little bit different. So McDaniel has been able to have 2 top end offenses playing completely different.
There's just a bit of a staleness when and it reminds me of NBA context. Finesse, like the Warriors, except they don't win. It's like a lot of threes, a lot of finesse, flair. They need some grizzly in them, some grit and grind, some beefy men out there, strong, physical, bring the toughness. Like how Pittsburgh, they gritty, they angry. Baltimore, they need some of that because it's too pretty. It's Miami.
It's rich. Miami, exactly.
Yeah, but even the Heat, tough. Hard nosed, like they need a coach that's really a demon.
Is like the Dolphins last year, the past 2 years, they were shooting a lot of threes, and then Mike McDaniel realized, well, against the better defenses, we really can't get these threes off.
Yeah.
So what he did is, okay, we got to kind of get to the free throw line a little bit more. We got to get to the line a little bit more.
What do you think about adding a voice? I don't think the Dolphins let go of Mike McDaniel.
No.
Why not make him OC?
No, he's not going to take that.
He's a head coach. No, he's awesome.
What would a guy like Mike Vrabel bring to changing Miami's culture, making them a tougher team?
I don't think they have the players.
But you can kind of develop that mentality and type of culture with the players.
I agree.
If you give that coach the players,
you need the players, though.
Yes, you invest in those players, and then he marinates.
Yeah, I'm with that. Like if Vrabel goes, but then where does Mike McDaniels go?
I know the pass rusher they drafted is very good for them, but if they invest heavily in the O-line this upcoming offseason, and then you add in a type of character like that,
was he the DC or the coach?
The coach.
It's just their personnel too.
I wouldn't fire McDaniel, but it's an idea. I wonder if they'd be a better team. I talked
about this, I think, last week. They have the lightest offensive line in the NFL, like the literally 32nd ranked offensive line in terms of weight. Waddle, Tyreek, speed guys, Achane, even Mostert, who's a big back speed guy.
It really is the Cardinals with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury.
McDaniel is just trying to make the offense more sustainable. Like if you compare last year's offensive performances against top teams to this year, they're better this year against those top teams. Like against the Bills, they didn't lose because of lack of offense when they faced them the second time around. They lost because their defense couldn't get a stop. Against the Packers, you have a muff punt, and then you have, not being able to get on the same page in the first half, but then in the second half, they start to score. They've been in much closer games this year than they were last year. Mike McDaniel just trying to make this offense a little bit more sustainable.
Nimble. They get hurt a lot, injury prone, like small, skinny. like me out there. It's like 12 me's. Like, it's just like, bro, what the fuck are we doing?
I've been looking at the comments recently, and they said that we haven't been giving the Seahawks enough love on the show.
Oh my guess
I'd agree.
The Seahawks are on a 4-game win streak. They were 4-5 at the bye week, and now they've won 4 games in a row. They're first in the NFC West.
You might
they
be
beat
lying.
the Cardinals twice.
I read some of the comments. Who said that?
It's probably just like 1 or 2. So sometimes this comment stick out to me. You know, maybe 1 or 2.
You just wanted to talk about
And
it.
I was like, we really haven't had a Seahawks topic. And the Seahawks on a 4-game win streak really what's changed. What's been the difference in this team? And it really comes down to one thing. It's Mike Macdonald. It's the Seahawks defense. The performance they just had against the Cardinals was the most encouraging performance of the season. The offensive line played well. They had the most rushing yards of the season. Geno took care and protected the ball. But really, it was the first game that they didn't put the entire weight of the offense's shoulders on Geno Smith. And then the defense fooling Kyler multiple times. This Seahawks defense, at first, it started off elite. They didn't face the best competition. Then they really struggled against the run. Since Ernest Jones came to the Seahawks, Mike Macdonald, what he's doing with the Seahawks right now is Ravens 2.0. They brought in Roquan Smith. The defense turned elite. That's what Ernest Jones has been to the Seattle Seahawks this year. As soon as they made the trade and got him from Tennessee, they became a much better run defense. They cut Tyrell Dotson. Tyrese Knight, the rookie linebacker, now steps up. You know that the Seahawks are the only team that has 5 defensive linemen that has recorded 30-plus pressures this year. Leonard Williams leads the way with 40, and he's playing at an elite level. Their linebackers, Ernest and Tyrese Knight, are playing really well. Devon Witherspoon has been the best run defender
Yeah, he's always been a hammer
in the league as a corner. The best run defender. Devon Witherspoon.
You love a good hammer.
Witherspoon has been the best run defender in the league at the cornerback position. He's also playing some really good coverage. And Mike Macdonald with the Ravens. Kyle Hamilton all-pro season. Geno Stone gets paid by the Cincinnati Bengals. Julian Love is having his best career season with the Seahawks right now. Kobe Bryant, converted corners, playing really well at safety right now. Mike Macdonald has turned around this team. And Ernest Jones coming from Tennessee. His defense coordinator was Denard Wilson, who's from the Mike Macdonald tree. Yep. Ernest Jones said this about Mike Macdonald. It's almost like he's playing on the field with us. The calls he's making, it's almost always right. And Ernest Jones has been that Mike linebacker for them, communicating the play calls to that defense. And that's what's really made this defense one of the elite units. Over the past 4 weeks, only allowing 15.5 points per game, they've been one of the best defenses in the NFL.
And it's impressive they've done this in year 1.
Hammer?
Yeah, you better get a hold of yourself.
So hard at a video so many times when he said Pacheco runs like a hammer. Oh my God, that video, because we all really stopped. Like, what are you talking about?
Does?
Yo, that's a funny video. I gotta find that. Santos.
I have it.
Do you think I disrespected Pacheco when we did the running back list?
Not really. I think he's around like 16 to 24, right?
No,
There's so many good running backs.
That video did really well.
I saw, we did.
And also
it's like 700,000 views.
Oh, really?
It is.
Is it TikTok?
Yeah, on TikTok.
TikTok,
Yeah.
yeah.
Shout out to you. Where'd you have him ranked?
TikTok.
Shit, 20s,
Yeah.
some like that.
He's like in the 20s. There's a lot of good
Him
running
and
backs.
Najee are like good backs, and they're like 18, 16.
I wanted to name this stat before you go, John. Ernest Jones, with him on the field, the Seahawks' rush success rate is 35.8%, tied for 7th best. When he was off the field, so before Ernest Jones got to the team, essentially, 41.9%, 27th in the NFL. One of the worst run defenses to one of the better run defenses with the Ernest Jones addition.
Yeah, it's crazy because it took Mike Macdonald in Baltimore 2 years to build a really elite defense with elite talent. Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Justin Matabuke, who developed Janie and Clowney, a very good talent. There was a lot of pieces. Patrick Queen, a lot of first-round pedigree on that Ravens defense, and still took them a full year to become elite. We're seeing that transition happen in Seattle in year 1 because of the talent and the depth in that front 7. You look at Leonard Williams, who's played super well, Jonathan Hankins, Jerron Reed, the linebacker plays we've highlighted, and of course the cornerback play we've known for a while. They are loaded in the secondary from safety to cornerback. And the work that they've done, I think what's really allowed this Seattle team to kind of take it a step forward is the simple fact that their play in the trenches has improved so much in the D-line. And then you look on the other side of the ball as well. Part of what's helped that offense, I think, is just the pass protection A guy like Charles Cross developing at left tackle. Riv, you got to stop giggling.
He was looking for the thing, he couldn't find it.
And I just think Seattle's become a more well-rounded team. I might have used the comparison of last year's Packers for the Vikings because I think Darnold reminds me of Jordan Love last season. But I think the Seahawks could win a playoff game and surprise a good amount of people.
Who they beat? Who can they beat right now? I love questions like this.
They're the 3rd seed, correct? So
Yeah.
they'd be playing the 6th seed, which would be the 2nd best wild card.
Green Bay.
So Green Bay, Minnesota, potentially.
It'd have to be Green Bay.
Because Minnesota's ahead. So I would say it's Green Bay.
I would actually
Green Bay
favor
heading
Seattle.
over to Seattle.
Their defense can go up against any offense.
I would
They're
take
that
Seattle.
good.
Green
At
Bay
home?
losing in the first
Seattle
round.
at home versus Green Bay. I would take Seattle.
Defense is
right
not
now.
good right now.
No,
The Packers defense is not. No, I think the Seahawks are a serious upset potential team. Their defense is just playing at that elite of a level. If their offensive line, it all hinders on their offensive line. If their offensive line can play well and they can run the ball at least a little bit and take some pressure off of Geno, they're really dangerous.
That's the biggest question
O-line
because
to be a little better still.
they have not been able to run the ball for a majority of the season with Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, who's still one of the more explosive backs than your boy.
Zach Charbonnet.
Zach Charbonnet went out there and
run.
had the best day a Seattle running back has had in maybe a couple of seasons because he was constantly hitting holes. He looked explosive. He was breaking tackles. It was the best game, in my opinion, I've ever seen Zach Charbonnet play. Not just being the lead back, but just a given snap. He looked explosive. He looked like a running back that, actually deserves to be out there because I feel like a lot of the time when he comes in for Kenneth Walker, you see a massive drop-off, but he came in against Arizona and he was sensational. We're going to learn a lot about Seattle for the next month of the season because the rest of the season schedule, they got Green Bay this upcoming week, then Minnesota, then Chicago, and then the Rams in week 18. So these last 4 weeks, they've been sensational. When you look at EPA success rate against the run or the pass, they're top 5 in everything. And this is playing Kyler Murray twice. This is playing the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets, who they actually had statistically their worst offensive game. They let up 21 points. They haven't allowed more than 18 points to any of the other 3 opponents, or 2 opponents because they played Arizona twice. But this defense is for real. This is what we expected when Mike Macdonald went over to Seattle, that even though Seattle doesn't have the most, name paper, players on paper in terms of talent, like they don't have all pros at every position, Mike Macdonald is still going to get the most out of what he has. And it took him a little bit of time. Of course, the Ernest Jones trades helps a bunch, but this is one of the better defenses in football. And if you're going to be able to, number one, have a home playoff game in Seattle, and you could have a consistent run game, whether it's with Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, and you could really rely on that defense with the way JSN is playing, which we haven't even talked about. JSN has taken over this wide receiver group. He is the wide receiver one on this team. Tyler Lockett is basically nothing at this point, and DK Metcalf has taken a step back because JSN is breaking out to be arguably a top 10 wide receiver in football. The way he's able to win over the middle of the field, the way he's able to attack man and zone coverage. I think he has great feel for the game. He's great after the catch. It's a lot of what we were hoping with him coming out of Ohio State. His rookie season wasn't great, but over this last month, 6 weeks of the season, really DK got injured in the middle of the year and JSN really took a tick up. I feel like Ryan Grubb has capitalized on that and is using him in all the ways that is best fit for JSN and his prototype. It's really unlocked, or at least helped the passing game be a bit more consistent. But if you could rely on this defense, which I think can, even with this tough schedule, can still be a really, really good defense, it's going to fall back on that running game. Because no matter how good the defense is, if their rushing attack is what it has been for really basically the entire season outside of this game, I still have my questions because Geno Smith, for as accurate and as good as he can be any given week, if you're going to ask him to drop back 40 plus times with an offensive line that's pretty damn shaky, I have my real questions about that. But if they can rely on the run game with the defense, they have a real chance to be on upset alert.
They're definitely peaking at the right time, and I think the most important part of it is you peak late, because if you peak late, you kind of have a hot start going into the playoffs. Having a home game in the playoffs in a one-game scenario is so important. You feel like you have the crowd behind you. You feel like it's electric. You kind of have that home buzz. You get to stay at home for the week. You got the family there, the friends there.
You get to sleep in your own bed.
Yeah, you get to. Some guys can't, but you get the extra motivation. And I think for me, the main problem is that offensive line, because I think going up against a team like Green Bay, what are the chances that Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary wreck that game?
Right now, none.
Yeah, right now, none. But, you get it on any given Sunday, they have the talent to do it. What are the chances that secondary comes out of nowhere and just starts playing really well? Like Green Bay is one of those teams where on any given Sunday, they can just randomly be the talented defense that they should be. So I think that's a tough one. I think outside of those, like NFC South is a wash. I don't even remember. Oh, Washington. I think Seattle can easily beat the Commanders. I think it really comes down to those top teams where, you look at Philly, you got Jalen Carter, you got Nolan Smith, you got all them boys who can really destroy that offensive line. You look at Detroit, they may not have Aiden Hutchinson, but their front seven has been playing pretty solid football. You look at Minnesota, another one where their front seven has been playing some solid football, and that defense can offer multiple blitz packages that can really disrupt that offensive line. And to not have a running game, that's another thing. You look at the top teams. You got Sonic and Knuckles. You got Saquon Barkley. You got Josh Jacobs over there in Green Bay, who they can run the ball, which alleviates some of the passing game for these quarterbacks. Seattle doesn't really have that. And it's not to say Kenneth Walker is not talented. It's really more that offensive line just doesn't get pushed. And I fear that could be something that really hinders them because it really hasn't been there all season. Like we're in week 12, 13, whatever it is, and it has no means of getting better or getting consistent. But nonetheless, Seattle is peaking at the right time. You got 2 important wins against the Cardinals. You really needed those, which were division games too, really important. It kind of feels like Seattle's probably going to win the division. The defense is really playing high-level football. And you mentioned it. They have a lot of guys that are maybe not the brightest in the media. You don't hear them every day on morning talks or, these shows. But Mike Macdonald has really got these guys, on his Kevin O'Connell shit or his Brian Flores shit where he's just having guys outperform what they're worth or what their money is saying. So shout out to Seattle. They're peaking at the right time. The question really is playoff time. You expect them to win a playoff game. They're playing at that level. Who are they going to draw? How can that offensive line play? How much help can Geno get from that supporting cast? Can the run offense be really good and sustainable?
I'm glad that you mentioned the pressure packages because that's been the biggest change. If you can't stop the run, you can't get teams into 3rd and longs and really open up that pressure package. Because they've been able to stop the run, Mike Macdonald has been able to really do some next level stuff with his pressure packages. There was a play against Arizona where they start off in a 2-high shell, they rotate over to single high, then the 2 safeties switch their positions, and the 1 safety drops to the hook to take away the flat, and they're blitzing while they're doing that. Like, that's why I give some grace to Collar for the performance he had, because I genuinely think that when you face Seattle and their defense, there's just so many things you have to think about, really with Mike Macdonald in general. And that's what makes them so dangerous, really how well that defense is playing. I love Geno Smith. This game, 18% of his dropbacks, he was pressured on in the gun, lowest this year. And he has the most true dropbacks in the NFL this season, which is dropbacks with no play action and that are not screenplays. So airing the ball out, essentially. In those dropbacks, which he has the most in the NFL, he's 4th in completion percentage, he's 1st in on-target rate, he's 5th in success rate, and he's 8th in first down and touchdown rate while being pressured on 35.5% on those dropbacks. I just pray that Geno, before he is still young enough to play at this level, because he is 34, he gets a chance to really have a stable situation around him, and he gets to truly elevate that situation because he's elevating a bad offensive line and bad run game. If you give him that with a defense that's playing this well, I think that's really a dangerous team that we're talking about as a potential contender. But because those things are question marks, that's why you have those question marks about Seattle as a whole.
This is the best foundation he's going to have. I think, obviously, we all loved Mike Macdonald before he got hired, but I think he's going to be the head coach there for a long time. I love Ryan Grubb as just an offensive play caller. We'll see. I mean, realistically, Ryan Grubb could get snatched up as a head coach in the next couple of years. So who knows how long he's going to be there in Seattle if they keep having success. But this is the best chance Geno's probably going to have. You mentioned he's 34, right? And Seattle's not going to be obviously drafting a quarterback, high or anything. They're going to make the playoffs. So there's a decent chance he gets another mini contract extension for a couple of years. So I think next year is probably his final year on that deal. Maybe he has one more, but he's going to have a 2-3 year window possibly. And I like the way this team is going. So I can see Geno doing it. I said last week, the 49ers window, it's getting awfully close to being shut. So Seattle with this coaching staff, with the weapons they have on both sides of the ball, it could be really dangerous.
85.7% of JSN snaps are in the slot. He's 5th in YAC in the NFL. He's top 10 in receiving yards. a little trivia for you guys. Can you guys guess the top 5 players in yards from the slot?
Shakir.
Khalil Shakir is number 3 with 472.
Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra is not here.
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb is not here.
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp is not here.
Is he close?
Jordan Addison.
I only had the top
Oh,
5.
gotcha.
Jordan Addison's not here. You guys might be thinking too hard.
Judy.
Judy's not here. Smitty's not here.
I'm just guessing.
I'm just thinking top guys.
Oh, Darnell Mooney.
Think about slot receivers. No, he's not here.
I was thinking
Yes,
Deuce's top league receiving.
Ladd McConkey.
Ladd
That's a
McConkey's
great
number
call.
2, 550
I'm thinking
yards. So
AFC.
far you have Ladd and you have Shakir. You haven't mentioned the one that we've been talking about the most.
Today.
I honestly forgot who we've been talking about. Though.
Well, just that we just talked about him.
Keenan Allen.
JSN.
JSN is number 1 at 767.
I thought he was already.
I thought we were already counting JSN.
Yeah, I thought he was already
So yeah,
included.
JSN's number 1, McConkey's number 2, and JSN has 200 more yards in the slot than him.
Josh Downs.
Josh Downs
solid
is
pull.
number 4
That's a solid
Cook.
pull.
at 469. One more name.
That's a great
That's my
pull.
brother. How you
Just
doing?
think
Wan'Dale
about
Robinson.
think about slot players. It's not Wandale.
Jesus Christ.
Slot players. Mario Douglas.
He's got the receptions.
Not Damari Douglas.
No, we got it. Let's go with.
That when Ribs thinks he's gonna have a name and he just doesn't. None comes out.
No, for real. My brain just. Oh, Zay Flowers.
Zay
I
Flowers
thought
is
it was
not
Zay,
here.
but no. It's not Waddle.
It's not Waddle.
No.
Roma Dunze.
Roma Dunze is not here.
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen's not here. No Bear.
Oh, got it. No bear.
Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed
That's-
is number 5.
I went to the Packers. I was scanning through their wide receivers in my mind. That's a good pull.
So the top 5 players in slot receiving yards this year: JSN, McConkey, Shakir, Josh Downs, and Jaden Reed.
That checks out.
Shout out to the slot guys, man.
And JSN has 200 more yards than second place.
Impressive.
Yeah, he's dominating in the slot right now. He's finally being used correctly. Rams versus 49ers. The 7-6 Rams versus the 6-7 49ers.
Niners need it.
Who are you guys taking in this game?
I am going with the Rams.
Even though the Niners need it.
I think the
Going
Rams are
against
just.
Purdy.
They just beat the Bills. They put 40
They also
on them.
allowed 42 points.
Hey, listen, bro, they're going to allow that, but they put 40 points, and I think that's the part that's moving me. Also, I really don't know off the top of my head who's going to play for the Niners, and that's been the ongoing theme for this team. Kind of like how the Rams were early in the year. Like, you don't know who's suiting up.
There is
for
no
the Niners.
timetable for Bosa and Trent Williams.
Yeah, and I think that really hurts. And I think this Niners team just lacks some juice. It lacks any real consistency. Purdy's been struggling a little bit. The offense in general has been struggling a little bit. It doesn't seem any way. I mean, I know they just beat fire out the Chicago Bears, but the Chicago Bears throughout this year have kind of been a shit show. You know, the Rams just went in there at home, went up against one of the best teams in the AFC and kind of, you know, did their thing. So I just feel like the Rams are a bit more I trust the Rams a little bit more. I trust their infrastructure a little bit more right now. And I think their offense will really be able to get it going. So I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford, and I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'm also going to go with the Rams in this matchup for a few reasons. One, their offense looks so prolific, and we saw that in that Bills game, just carving up that defense and really having relative ease with the way the wide receivers are playing. I think Kyron Williams can also get going in this matchup, but I think the bigger thing on the other side is that the 49ers do have so many injuries. Isaac Guerrero this last week had a fantastic day, but he, of course, is dealing with the foot sprain. You wonder about the availability in that offense, and like you just highlighted now, there are some blemishes and some, I guess you could say, struggles as Niners offense has had because of some of the key absences. And I think right now I have a lot more faith in this Rams offense and also their coaching staff. I think they're putting together a run here before the playoffs to try to make a push.
I mean, Guerrero didn't practice today, so it's either going to be Taylor or unless they give Izzy Bondaconda, former Jet.
Shout out Izzy. I think he'd be a really good back.
I know
He
he was great at Pitt. I loved the
at
Jets selection, but just some shit doesn't work out. I'll take the Rams though too. I mean, coming off the win, you're just coming off of beating the Bills at home in that fashion, 44-42, going up against a lot of people's MVP favorite, a lot of people's AFC favorite to win the Super Bowl, to make that statement, and go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in football. I think it means a lot. What you guys are saying about San Francisco is true. Short week, team that's super injured. Their running back situation, they're on like their 4th or 5th string running back at this point. Juwan Jennings has continued to be sensational, so shout out to Juwan Jennings. Yeah. You also have the Deebo Samuel situation going on in the background.
I get open.
Yeah.
Where
He's just not giving me the ball.
I'll be honest, I see Deebo. He's not the same. That, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they gave him 5-6 carries or
Well, they
something.
got George Kittle though.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just Debo has been getting decent opportunity. It's not like he's seen 2 touches a game. He's been getting decent opportunity, but he's not turned into explosive plays like he has in years past. So I don't think it's just like I need more opportunity thing. But yeah, I got the Rams in this game. I think momentum's on their side.
This is one of those matchups that is really hard to predict because even though the 49ers, it's a long shot if they make the playoffs, I feel like there's no bigger satisfaction than knocking out the Rams out the playoffs. And if the Rams lose this game, it's going to be very hard to catch up to Seattle. Even though they're just a game back, and the Seattle Seahawks have the Packers this weekend, so that game could go either way as well. I'm going to go with the Rams here, even though I think the 49ers can put up a lot of points. My concern is with the offensive line, Jared Verse getting pressure on Purdy. I don't trust the Rams secondary at all, but if they can get pressure up front, they can neutralize that offense somewhat. And the 49ers defense played really well against the Rams, but no Nick Bosa. They probably will be able to protect Stafford well. They don't have the corners with their injuries to really go up with Puka and Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to go with the Rams as well on the road winning this game.
Rams. The Rams beat them the first time around too, so they would sweep them. Yeah, facts.
Oh, isn't the stat that Kyle Shanahan cannot beat Sean McVay, but on the other hand, Shanahan does not lose to Seattle, and then the Rams had the hardest time versus Seattle. It's like that, you know what I'm talking about? That like trio of one coach getting the better of the other, but then that coach.
49ers usually beat the Seahawks, beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, and they can't beat the Rams. That's really the theme consistently.
So the Seahawks beat the Rams. The Rams beat the Niners. The Niners beat the Seahawks. And the Cardinals are just like there. It's like,
they beat the Niners.
Yeah. Who really cares about the Cardinals? Now, NBA, we have players of the week here. We've been doing this tradition every single week. Luka Doncic and Tyler Herro are this week's player of the week.
We had Barnes and who else we had the last time we did it?
We had Harrison Barnes. We had Giannis.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Last week was Şengün and who?
I'm forgetting. Who was
Brunson.
Şengün, yes.
It seems like we're getting balance back. The Harrison Barnes' name is odd.
Harrison Barnes.
Harrison Barnes like a very
he did have a good ass week.
Games,
yeah, we're getting some balance.
Talking about Luka Doncic first, and we can talk about Tyler Herro. Luka Doncic this past week averaged 29, 12, and 8. The Mavericks went 3-0 against the Raptors, Wizards, and Grizzlies. Really, the Grizzlies game was the holy grail of the week. NBA Cup game. Luka Doncic playing the passing lanes, getting steals, getting his hands in the cookie jar, getting some steals. Right now, Luka Doncic, last time I checked, he's 5th in steals per game at 1.9. He's 9th in deflections per game.
Oh, shit.
The only players...
Dyson Daniel Jr. over here? What do we got?
The only players that are averaging more deflections per game than Luka Doncic. Let me look at this right here. Kaysen Wallace, great defender. DeJounte, great reputation defender. De'Aaron Fox, good defender. Caruso, great defender. OG, great defender. Herb Jones, great defender. Jokic, who underrated defender. And Dyson Daniels. I mean, those are the only players ahead of Luka. I mean, Luka's putting his name in some lofty conversations with some great defensive talent.
Well, you said there's a few outliers though in every data set, and the outliers might be DeJounte and Luka.
No, I think Luka belongs here because, I think steals per game can always be a little bit jaded. People don't respect steals per game, but deflections per game, that shows true activity. That shows hustle. That shows a want to play defense. Luka is wanting to play defense. He's playing it pretty well right now.
This is great news. This is all only thing I've ever asked from Luka is just to try. Like, listen, you know what I mean? You're not the most like side to side athletically gifted guy that you can stay in front of him. I get it, but you're strong. You know what I mean? You got good hands. You can stay in front of dudes, especially try to back it. Just try. You know what I mean? That's all I've asked, and he's doing that. So shout out to him.
I just feel like offensive-centric superstars, whenever they take a backseat to playing defense, Luka's more extreme than others because
backseat's a nice way to put it.
I don't think that he has the athletic ability to really play like elite level defense. But James Harden, when he was in Houston, was one of the best offensive players in the history of the game.
One of the greatest scorers of all
time.
time.
He was looked at as a very poor defender because of responsibility he had to take on offense. But James Harden once was the defensive stopper for OKC. Like, they would put Harden on Kobe.
Well, in year 3, as a 6-man off the bench, you got to do whatever it takes.
I know, but I'm saying, when you're playing with Patrick Beverly and Chandler Parsons, you have to do more.
Tried to spin that narrative.
Yeah, he had a third of his usage in Houston relative to OKC.
This is the thing, I think there are a lot of things going on with Luka right now that is shedding narratives. Even last year, the numbers really back this up.
You're gonna the fucking on ISOs when he's guarding the 9th best player on a team for
I can't-
What do you mean?
can't
How many
defend him
times
as
did
much as
Jaylen
that.
Brown ISO him? What do you mean? Great players are ISO and Luka. They're trying to hunt him too. What are you talking about? So this is what I wanted to shed light on. Luka Doncic, because of the finals loss, there's been a lot of narratives around his name. Terrible defense, can't win the way that he plays. All of these narratives that
seem to be true up to this point.
I feel like are unfair to him because at his young age, he's already made the conference finals twice. He's made the NBA finals. He's one of the very best players in the world. And I feel like he's had to take on the offensive load because of the supporting cast around him.
Yep.
In the previous 4 years, Luka led the league in unassisted points percentage. This year, Luka's not even in the top 10.
Cade is one.
65.8% of Luka's baskets are unassisted. Last year, he led the league in that stat. And this year, he's averaging a career low in touches, in possessions, and average dribbles per touch. So Luka is taking a back seat with more talent around him. Oh my God, that's such a crazy concept. The more good players you have around you, the less you have to do offensively to win games. And he had to do the most offensively to win those games.
It was Najee Marshall.
PJ Washington.
PJ's not
Quentin
playing tonight.
Grimes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, and can I say something about the
That
Quentin Grimes
sucks.
shit? I'm saying Drew's seat. He used to bag Quentin Grimes for a 4-game sample of the Pistons playing poorly. We all should have seen this coming. He's going to be a good rotation player playing next to Luka. I
And,
never understood that. People
he's
overlooking
playing
that.
well. You know, Quentin Grimes is hitting big time shots.
He was
He's
always a
playing
good role
defense.
player with the Knicks. And
And,
he got traded to Detroit and got hurt.
Nico
So,
Harrison has been a great GM for the Mavericks, and also the other narrative, the defense thing. I don't think Luka is a great defender. Like I don't
terrible.
even think he's a good defender. I think he's an average defender.
and
I
We
think,
talked about this before the show. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
and I think too often because of a bad performance, we label players. Nikola Jokic was labeled as a terrible, one of the worst defenders before he won the NBA Finals. But if you watch Jokic, you always knew that he was never as bad as people suggested. And I think a similar thing is going on. The playoffs and specifically the finals is everything people hone on with Luka Doncic. In the playoffs, he allowed 0.67 points per possession on ISOs, which was 11th. His opponent shot 31.8% from the field, and he was in the 7th percentile as an ISO defender. I feel like Luka plays good team defense.
When he wants to.
Two of the Mavericks' deep playoff runs have been great defenses that he's been a part of, and I think that people overlook that. Like, if he's such a liability on defense, how come he's so often part of great defenses that make these deep playoff runs? He was in a 78th percentile as an ISO defender in the playoffs last year. Opponents shot 5.2% worse against him, and the Mavericks' defensive rating was 110.1 with him on the court. And this year, their defensive rating is 108.8 with him on the court, which is in an 82nd percentile. So Luka is still a part of some great defenses, and yes, you have to have great defensive personnel around him, but it's no different than Jokic having Aaron Gordon and KCP. When you have an offensive-centric superstar that is not a two-way player, you need to surround them with great defensive personnel, and the only thing that matters is that Luka has bought in, and he's playing defense, and Jason Kidd has asked him to play defense, and he's playing it.
Shouts to Luka. I said I think when he actually tries, he's fine. He's not a terrible defender when he tries, but there's just too many times where he just has lapses. He doesn't give effort. Like in the finals,
Game 3.
you could show me the fucking ISO stats, EFG. I don't really give
It
a
was
shit.
probably
He
bad in the finals.
He was bad
no
in the
shit.
finals,
He's
and then to start the year this year, I thought he was one of the worst defenders in the NBA. Since he's gotten back from injury these last 4 games or whatever, he's definitely been a lot better because to start the season was damn near worse than what he was showing in the finals. I mean, of course, you had that game when he dunked to John Collins that sticks out. He had to play against Steph Curry where Steph just ran right by him. He was standing at the 3-point line just looking around. Steph Curry, I get it. But when Luka, the thing is like, what makes me more mad than anything is that it's an effort thing 95% of the time, right? Like, there's only so much you could do if you're fucking Al Horford and you got fucking De'Aaron Fox who could just blow by you every single time, right? Like, you only do so damn much. You're Al Horford, you're 40 years old. But Luka, a lot of the time, is just effort, and he's not trying. Doesn't seem like he cares. When he does, he's a fine defender. He's more than passable. Like, he could be on good defenses, but more times than not, in the big moments, he hadn't stepped up. This year, up to this point, because since he got back from injury, I give him his respect. He's been doing his thing.
I think it really does get overblown at times. Like, look at him and his lack of discipline at times. Like, Game 3, falling out of the finals last year, where it has been a hindrance to his team. It's overshadowed in the regular season. It's not really a talking point. Luka's a fine defender who blends in and can help well on the nail and can be a good defensive rebounder at 6'9". I think the defensive talks aren't really relevant until you get to the second round of the playoffs. And that's when is Luka, if he's coming off a calf injury, is he not able to rotate and be able to help defensively like he couldn't then he couldn't in the second series versus the Suns where they upset the Suns.
So let me
There's
get
just
this
moments in series where he may struggle.
You can go out there and get 40, but you can't go play defense because of a calf injury. This is what kills me about the Luka conversation. This is what really bothers me.
It's not many players that could get 40 and be lockdown defenders.
I'm not asking you to be a lockdown. But
Jokic is not doing that.
No, I'm not asking you to be a lockdown. This is my problem with the conversation. The stuff that he's doing on defense, we usually talk about that for little guards, like the lack of effort, the lack of discipline. Those are like for guards who just get lost on defense and stuff like that. But with Luka, it's like, or like you're getting blown by. With Luka, it's like all the excuses. He gets these excuses for why, he's always injured. And like, that's why he's struggling on offense. Okay, fine. He's injured.
That happened
sure.
once.
No, it's fine. Like, he's injured. Sure, I understand it. But like, dude, on defense, like Dehls mentioned, bro, just show some effort. Your teammates, and then it'd be the whining. That's what really, you sitting there, you're whining about your teammates. On the other end, you're bitching to the refs. Brother, go back and play some defense. Like, it's just the attitude, the way he comes. It's just, it's a turnoff.
I don't think it's the 40-point games where Luka's not defending. I think it's nights where things are snowballing and torpedoing. He's having a poor offense.
And that's poor attitude. And then you're complaining all the time. And then you're bitching. And listen, the Joker does it too. He doesn't get no slack. He's another one who's always constantly in the ref's face.
Well, he gets a shitty whistle
like
anyways.
And it's
Except
probably,
this year. It's
a lot of star players get a shit, whistle.
A lot of them complain.
Yeah, a lot. LeBron is another one. Crybaby. Like these guys, they do complain too much. But these two specifically, it's like, damn, bro, like, just go play some defense.
I just think a lot of the narratives from Luka stem from him just not having enough help on his team.
Yeah.
Just offensively to take the shoulder,
that's
take the load off
fair.
his shoulders. And I feel like this year, because this is the best team I think he's ever had, this year more than other years, we're seeing that he's willing to be more of an off-ball player. He's willing to take more of a backseat. But that's because he's able to now.
Yeah,
and I think the narratives around him being a ball hog are now lessening with the team getting better around him. I also think that, the effort on defense, that's showing because he has to do less offensively now. Mm-hmm. So that's just a benefit. And I think the Mavericks are doing an awesome job with surrounding Luka with talent right now.
On the margins, they found so many key rotation players. Well said.
And Klay Thompson, Drew he has a pickle with you right now.
Who?
Drew, because he thinks that you yelled at him for no reason over Klay Thompson.
But it wasn't just Klay.
He thinks it's just Klay.
Because he didn't listen to the conversation.
What was his exact words?
He said you didn't mention Najee Marshall.
Exactly.
That's because he circled Klay the most. Like, we were having a conversation. We were talking about how the Mavericks got better in the offseason. And his main focus was why? Because they got Klay. And that's why we circled Klay's name. But it was always Klay, Najee, Quentin Grimes. And once again, it's easy to harp on dudes. Like, he didn't say a word when Klay was playing fine. But now it's easy to harp on dudes when they're not playing well. And Klay's not shooting the ball well, but the attention's still drawn to him. People are still running at him for threes, and they're playing well. So who actually cares?
Mavericks fans are actually surprisingly very positive about Klay Thompson because they're realizing the off-ball gravity that he's providing.
And he's not taking dumbass shots like he was with us because we had to have him take dumbass shots. He's our number 2. He's like the number 3 or he's sometimes like the number 4 of there. So he's taking the looks he gets, and if he doesn't make them,
shit, sometimes number 5 behind Najee.
I'm saying, like, with us, it's like he's forcing them, so it looks worse.
I think there's just so much versatility because last year in the playoffs, the Mavericks didn't have much lineup versatility, but now if Klay's struggling, Quentin Grimes can play. Najee Marshall can play next to PJ. And they just have, wing defenders. They have more shooting. I think this is the best roster that they've had in Luka era.
Tyler Herro also won Player of the Week.
He did.
We forgot that part.
No, we didn't. I was going to get to him.
Blazing Luka.
Tyler Herro.
20
Tyler
minutes.
Herro did win Player of the Week as well. 25 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 5.5 assists per game.
Is slowly
they went 3-1 this past week. I mean, they beat your Cleveland Cavaliers, and Tyler Herro was the best player on the court that day. They also beat Drew's Lakers. He was the best player on the court that day as well.
A lot of people are the best player on the court when they play against the Lakers. Yeah, we struggled that game. But nonetheless, Miami's starting to figure it out. Bam's still struggling offensively, but the offense starting to look like it gels. The defense is looking really good. Tyler Herro's been playing at an all-star level. You love to see it because it's love to just have more teams that are good.
Especially in the East.
Yeah, like we just need more teams that are good. And Miami is slowly starting to trend in that right direction. So hopefully they continue it and they keep it going. Especially with the ongoing news of possibly another player that might be moved. You like that Tyler Herro's playing like this. And maybe he can just be that guy for the time being.
I think Tyler Herro right now is the 6th best shooting guard in the NBA.
Okay.
I think number 1 is Anthony Edwards. Number 2 is Donovan Mitchell. You can have them either way. I'm an Ant-Man guy.
I just like that you say that. I was waiting for that part.
Devin Booker this year has not impressed me at all.
Tell Drew to talk about that. He hasn't said a fucking word about Devin Booker.
I will have Devin Booker at 3 for respect, but he can drop off because Devin Booker.
That Jalen Brown's over
he's really he has not.
Forgetting he's a shooting guard.
Devin Booker has not taken the weight on his shoulders since KD has went out and really imposed his will on games. I've been very disappointed in Devin Booker. Like, where's the Devin Booker that was historic in the playoffs?
Nuggets series.
2 playoffs ago. Where's that Devin Booker?
He's just not
that guy.
Mitchell.
So number 3 is Devin Booker. Number 4 is Jaylen Brown.
Fucking casual.
Number 5 is Kyrie.
Zach LaVine is better than Tyler Herro.
Number 6 is Tyler Herro right now.
Zach LaVine is better than Tyler Herro.
It's a conversation.
Zach LaVine is, when he's healthy, which he's showing you right now, Zach LaVine is better than Tyler Herro.
Herro's been doing this basically all season, though. He's been on a
Zach's
tear.
been hoping.
So I got these names.
I don't know. It's close, bro.
I got these names.
I don't think it's close.
LaVine's been amazing in that role, but
This is this season.
Amazing.
This season, Tyler Herro or these other shooting guards. This is for the
Zach's
6th
also the best
shooting guard spot.
Team.
Desmond Bain and Tyler Herro
So is Hero.
this year.
This year, Hero, but overall, easily Desmond Bain.
Desmond Bain's.
You think
Keep
it's easily
the
Desmond
Wait,
Bain
hold
overall?
on.
Bain's been
John,
struggling.
you're not being consistent. You said Tyler Herro and Zach LaVine are close because of how Tyler Herro's playing. Speak on Desmond Bain's play.
He has
And
not been playing. He has not been playing at that level.
He's been playing like shit. So shouldn't Tyler Herro be over him?
Well, this season, Tyler Hero is clearly better.
Yes,
but I think last 3 years, I would take Desmond Bain as the better defender. I would take him as a passer slightly.
The question was this year.
Off-ball gravity.
This year, it's Tyler Hero.
I know, but I want to preface.
But Tyler
Desmond
Herro-
Bain's really been struggling.
Last 3 years, wouldn't you take Zach
think,
over Hero? Please keep it consistent.
well,
Injuries.
Zach last year is really one of the most disappointing players in the league. So
That's fair. What about your
Desmond Bain, I think, is going to get closer back to that level.
Tyler Hero's also.
But here's the thing, though,
disappointing
John.
seasons.
I feel like this is. We've been doing podcasting for like 4 years now. So
Maybe longer.
we saw like our first year podcasting was Tyler Herro's rookie year, the bubble where everybody was very high on him, where he was amazing as a rookie. And because we're like talking about this all the time, sometimes players disappoint us, sometimes they don't meet up to those expectations, and we forget that they are young. Like Tyler Herro is 24 years old. He's been in the league for a while, but he's still relatively a young player. And right now, we're just seeing a leap that Herro's taking. He's taking 10 threes per game.
Making 42%
He's getting
of
to
them.
the foul line much better. He's
For a
an
good
excellent
playmaking.
elite mid-range shooter right now.
Tough shot
His
making.
finishing at the rim has improved. He's
I also give
finishing,
Bain some grace, though. He did get hurt.
61% at the rim for Herro this year. I also think that Tyler Herro's taking a leap that if Jimmy Butler does get traded, which we will talk about on the show, Tyler Herro could even improve on that and really become like a 24, 26 point per game scorer.
Isn't he? What is he at? 24.
He's at 24 right now. 24, 5, and 5.
Yeah, solid playmaker too.
You said Herro or Bain?
Yeah,
This year it's Hero. It's not that close.
You said this year.
this year.
Herro.
Jalen Green.
It's not even fucking close.
Brother.
Tyler Hero.
He's not even better than Ahmed. Let's just call it how we see it.
RJ Barrett.
I was just playing well, too.
RJ's having a really
I'll
good
take
year.
Tyler Herro.
I'll take Tyler Hero as well. I think he's a more complimentary.
I like the dynamic scorer he is.
the off-ball play.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dyson Daniels.
I didn't even get a fucking say. I'm taking RJ Barrett.
There you go.
Really?
Oh, that boy. Welcome.
Like beefy
I'm
wings.
big. I'm a big RJ Barrett fan. I like his game.
I like that.
Who'd you say? Dyson.
Dyson Daniels.
Ooh.
Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero's a better. I mean,
Better scorer.
he's a better scorer.
Offensive
yeah,
play, I'll
exactly.
say. He's better.
Dyson has a
offensively.
lot of limits offensively still.
Yeah, but
The
defensively.
shooting
Woo!
is
it's
something I
fucking
think
dog.
holds
That
him
brother's.
I would go a Hero, but they.
Dyson's
I mean,
Dyson's having a hell
defense
of a
is
year.
practically Herro's
That's
offense.
your
yeah, you have some
defensive-
new different
all
things.
Let me
defensive
I'll
candidate.
take Tyler though.
Bradley Bill.
Oh God, I'll take anybody over.
I would
Bradley.
take Tyler
Now
Herro.
Bradley's
I'll
been
take
cool
Tyler
though.
Herro.
Give me Tyler Herro.
yeah.
CJ McCollum.
I'll also
Has
take
barely
Tyler
played.
Hero.
Yeah, Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
Give me
It's
Tyler.
tough.
James Harden.
James Harden.
I would still take Harden, even though the efficiency
about it.
has been pretty ugly.
He's the only guy.
I know. Yeah.
He's like me on my men's league.
Bro,
But also,
give it
I
a
mean-
fucking rest. Respect
Also,
your
they
brother.
get
Your brother,
classified
is
as
your
a
brother
point
was
guard.
player of the game.
There's not a lot that he got going for them. Like Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler, of
John,
course,
am I not
he's
the
been
only
banged
ball
up a
handler?
bit. Bam's been terrible. Terry hasn't been good.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, come on, man. That's all.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm saying.
I might go with Herro over Harden. The efficiency is night and day.
The playmaking is night and day.
But Herro is a very good passer,
It's
though.
not close.
You got to watch these games,
It's not close. It's not close. It's not close. I get it. One can improve while also still not being close to a guy that's much higher.
I really want to go with here. I'm tempted
No,
to
you
go
can do
with
what you
Herro.
want. I'm just letting you
Go
know.
Herro.
Harden is playing really well right now. The
he
playmaking
is.
will never be close between the two.
That's what I'm saying.
but
It's like not
I
even-
do want to note, like, Tyler Herro's passing and his decision making has been one read ahead on a lot of his drives. I
Harden's
think,
like 4 reads ahead.
yeah, he also is very slow at this stage.
Stop
of his career.
disrespecting.
That's a
Harden.
fact. You're not lying.
I'll go with Tyler Herro.
Okay. The only names up I could really say is Josh Hart.
What the fuck? You didn't have to say him.
Like, I'm looking at shooting guards.
Mom
There's
making
Josh
single
Hart.
ones.
They have Harden
There's
as a
Devin
2 guard.
Vassell.
All right, here, I'll get one. Derek White or Tyler Herro.
Derek fucking White.
He's more of a point guard to me, though.
Drew Holiday or Tyler Herro.
Drew. Actually, that's close, though.
I think you could say.
I'll take Tyler.
Last year, Tyler Herro
I'll
was a
take
point
Drew.
guard. You could say he's.
What's my team? This is where it lingers.
But that's what I'm saying. Tyler Herro has been like one of the 7 best shooting guards in the league right now.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why they still have
been
James
the best
Harden
player
listed
on
as
the
a
Heat.
shooting guard.
I listed him there just
okay,
to list
okay.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
me
take
give
him
you-
over Josh Hart too, respectfully.
Wasn't even thinking about that one.
Surprisingly enough, though, Tyler Herro is listed as a point guard on ESPN PER.
Right, but
Him and-
if you look at his
yeah.
like play-by-play
a
data,
shooting
it's a
guard.
shooting guard.
Yeah, yeah.
And he
Him and
plays that.
Rozier, I feel like they're the same. Small 2 guards that just
They're
probably
combos. These
have
are-
to play the point
No,
guard.
but we're seeing like a real serious leap from Tyler Herro
He-
this year.
He's a clear all-star. The leap that he's taken as a ball handler and as like a creator, it's been to the point where I start to look at his game and it is reminiscent of like Devin Booker. Is like a year, like almost like he's a stage slower than Booker. Like Booker took that ascension a year sooner, but for Miami, he's been really their unsung hero. Not even their unsung hero. He's been the
hero,
one.
yeah.
He's been the one uplifting that team as Bam struggled early
He's
and
been
has
their best
continued
offensive
to.
player by
Not
far.
even close.
Yeah.
And Jimmy also had his struggles. He turned 35, and I think we're starting to see Hero have the keys actually handed to him, and it's nice to see because we
bless.
wondered what the ceiling was to his game. We're seeing it's more than just maybe that Anthony Simons tier of guys. Maybe he can be a little bit more. And for the Heat, that's pretty big. He's only 24 years old.
Did you just say God bless Dehls? Last time I remember in the first round of the playoffs, the win the Miami Heat got on you guys was led by none other than who?
They
20
hit,
and
they
10.
hit 23 threes.
Yeah, that shit was
What am I
crazy.
supposed to do? Like,
Tyler Herro, baby. ESPN Plus article came out today. Shams behind a paywall. He's at ESPN now. And if you guys don't want to subscribe to them, that's why you subscribe to us, because we're going to read the
I'm not
article for
subscribed to
you.
them.
And we're going to give you the information.
we got to pick a side account for ESPN Plus.
I don't even know. I use my personal, but because I
I
have
also use
Disney
my
Plus, I
personal.
have Hulu and stuff.
Yeah.
So
gotcha,
I got the whole
Well,
bundle.
I can share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the main takeaways from the article. Then we could hone in on one and then speak about that. Eyes will be on Jimmy Butler and Brandon Ingram. Butler has a player option after this year. Ingram is on an expiring contract. Teams have also inquired about CJ McCollum and Herb Jones' availability. The Heat are open to listening to Jimmy Butler trade offers. Next up, the Nets are open to trading Cam Johnson, DFS, and Schroeder. In the article, the Warriors were the only team mentioned with interest in all 3 players. So all 3 of them, DFS, Cam Johnson, and Schroeder.
Take them all.
But there's also tweets from some credible sources, Evan Siddery, who's from Forbes NBA, that Cam Johnson's trade market is the Grizzlies, Magic, Kings, Lakers, and Warriors.
Yeah.
The Pacers are actively pursuing a backup center. James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson injury has led to that.
Yeah,
The Blazers, multiple teams have expressed interest in Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, and Rob Will. And the Wizards, several contending teams are expected to pursue Kyle Kuzma.
I don't know.
We can skip to Kyle Kuzma talks. I'll start
The
first.
biggest name is Jimmy Butler.
I think I'll start because the Warriors are in every talk, which makes sense. I feel like they need to be. I feel like Jimmy Butler, he's a weird one because I feel like he makes sense in theory because he's kind of the star that you want to pair next to Steph Curry. You know, he's a guy who's pretty selfless in his game where he doesn't really need to be a number one. You know, he's still a solid defender, really good playmaker, still strong enough to where he can get to the rim, has the midi to his game, ball handling not too crazy. And I think he's on expiring. So if you do trade for him, you're probably not going to give up a whole ton. Probably just Wiggins, maybe a pick, and a young player you probably don't even care for anymore.
Giving up Wiggins is tough.
And that's the
Been
brutal
playing, yeah,
part.
really well.
But at the same time, if you get back a really good Jimmy Butler, then all that shit
better than Wiggins,
it throws out the window. And also on top of that, like, yeah, he's on expiring, but Steph is 36, 37 years old. You know, Draymond's 34 years old. You kind of have to make these moves now and say, fuck the future if you really care about Steph and him wanting to compete at the highest levels. But I think DFS and Dennis Schroeder seem, I hope I said his last name right. I feel like those two sound more reasonable. I think you can move Moody, you can move DeAnthony Melton, who they've been hovering around. I think Nets, they want, you know, in a protected, a heavily protected first or a couple seconds to grab those two players. Because I think at this point, Pod sucks. And I think,
move him?
Yeah. And I think Dennis is a really good player. He's always been a really good player, like a really good backup, solid point guard, brings some tenacity to the game. DFS brings you another big wing that can hit the three ball and play defense next to Wiggins. And I think that would be huge. I think Cam, you could probably move Moody's contract and Kuminga, but I think you would probably give too much up for Cam Johnson. So I think for me, realistically, Dennis, DFS. Jimmy's realistic. I just don't know if they'll pull the trigger. That's for me. I don't know. Golden State has never been one to really send out a ton of picks or, you know, really embrace the whole give up a lot to get less thing. So I don't know if Mike Dunleavy, he's a new guy, so I don't know if he's going to be willing to pull the trigger. But if he does, shit, Steph, Jimmy, Dre, I'm all for it. You know, get this guy another star. You saw last game against the Timberwolves, Steph still has it in him, you know, to do those things. You know, you saw Buddy Hield, when he can play well, they wake up, you know, and then Draymond's still that defensive demon that he is. So that's where I'm at with it.
Right. I'd rather see Cam Johnson in a place like Cleveland. 'Cause I think in Golden State, he would obviously fit, but defensively playing him, Buddy Hield, and Steph wouldn't be optimal for you guys going to the playoff run. But I look at Cam Johnson destinations. We're talking about one of the NBA's best shooters, someone that's averaging 18 a game. He can still scale down to 14, fit in perfectly as a fifth starter. And there's so many teams that could use that as that small forward like Cleveland, to where I think he will get moved this deadline for up to 2 first-round picks if you include a little bit extra for Brooklyn on that side. But I just don't see Golden State as that team. I think the Cavaliers making that one last move would, 1, be realistic, and 2, make for a big change in the Eastern Conference.
Jimmy Butler or Cam?
I'm talking about Cam Johnson, not Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler's... I don't think Jimmy Butler gets traded because the Miami Heat aren't a team that leaks a whole lot. They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA. So when something like that gets reported, I think I have to see the actual like source of it. And the likelihood of him being traded at 35 years old on expiring contract is slim because the Heat aren't going to get a whole lot. And I think they would rather just let him walk in free agency or just let the year play out before they make a move like that, which would completely sink their chances of winning a playoff series, even though I think those are quite slim already.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to win a playoff series regardless.
No,
probably should have traded Jimmy Butler a couple of years ago.
Come on. They were a 1 seed.
They grab a 4th seed randomly.
I mean, they were the 8th seed. They go to the NBA Finals. The value's pretty fucking high at that point, but they kept on to him. Huh?
It was your fault.
Yeah, it's not their fault for not trading him. I think for the Warriors, though, I mean, we got the report like a week ago, maybe around then, that they're looking for another star.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler fits like the star mold, but I agree, John. I don't know if, I think you guys both said, I don't know if Jimmy Butler's the move to make for the Warriors. Adding a couple of really good role players like Cam Johnson and Dennis Schroeder, role players plus at this point, you know, I think that's a more natural fit with Steph Curry, with Draymond, what they got going on now. But I do think Jimmy Butler, if I'm the Heat, I'll be looking to move him. There is no reason why you should keep him on this team. There is no world you are doing anything this season. The Miami Heat, at absolute best case scenario, they managed to get in at like a 6 or 7 seed because the East is just so damn weak, or maybe even a 5 seed and you could play like in Orlando and like maybe that's your path. But outside of that, I don't see them being Boston. I don't see them being the Knicks. I don't see them being the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they're going to have a much better regular season for them to even get up into that, 4, 5, 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. So there's if you have a chance to move Jimmy Butler and you could get anything, I don't really care if you don't think you're getting the best value for him. You might as well move off of him. Give the keys to Tyler Herro like you're seeing. He's doing a really good job of it now, and try to build something for the future, because obviously you got Spo. You got a team that has a track record of winning. Jimmy Butler is holding you back more than anything right now, because he's just going to make you good enough to make the first round of the playoffs and get bounced. Move off him, try to bottom out a bit, or at least bottom out as much as you can in the Eastern Conferences. They're going to be like probably still the fucking 8 or 9 seed, because they're going to have a decent team and the best coach in the NBA. But yeah, for the Warriors, I'd like to see them go after like a Cam Johnson type to fit in more than Jimmy Butler. Miami should still look to move him.
I feel like Jimmy Butler is going to be so hard to trade for him, because in the Warriors case, they're gonna have to trade like 5 players to match the salary.
What's he
so
making?
much money.
At least
59
50.
million.
Yeah.
59
Close to
crazy.
60.
That's Wiggins, Moody. We're at 41. Milton. Hey,
It's Milton.
We're at
It's
53.
Melton.
He's making
Melton.
12 M's?
Yeah.
1 year,
Just
12
1 year.
mil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in
miss
the
him every
article,
day.
it said that Jimmy Butler is interested in 3 places: the 2 Texas teams, the Mavericks and the Rockets,
Okay.
and the Warriors. I have some Jimmy Butler trade packages for those 3 teams. The Mavericks are out, so I lied about the trade package because they would have to trade
All their depth.
4+ key rotational players. I'm talking about PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Najee Marshall, potentially Klay Thompson. It's not worth it for the Mavericks at this point for a 1-year rental. It's just not. So I really honed in on the Warriors and the Rockets. The Warriors trade package, and this is just from a contractual standpoint, so obviously picks could be added on. Andrew Wiggins, DeAnthony Melton, Jonathan Kuminga, and Santos. Guy Santos.
Oh, shit. He's on the roster. No picks. Just
You'd have to
It
price
would
it
have
on
to be a
it.
pick.
First,
You're not down a
seconds.
pick.
he definitely.
first
But
round.
you are
I mean,
giving
if
up
you're
Wiggins and
giving up
Kuminga.
Kuminga and Wiggins, I don't know if you really got to give up picks.
That's why I don't think
Yeah,
if
I
you
think-
try to
think
keep
so.
Kaminga and give up a pick.
So
That's
this would work.
You need Kuminga
That's
to
a
make the
good
money work.
foundation in the deal. I think you had like a lightly protected
add Moody.
first.
Did they make it the same?
Lightly protected
Moody makes
first.
more.
I think the Heat would want a little bit of draft capital, and that could be intriguing.
If I'm the
Moody
Heat
makes-
and I could get Jonathan Kuminga and maybe Andrew Wiggins, so
Yeah.
if he keeps us up, could
You
be
have to
another
pay
tradable
Kuminga.
asset.
Yeah.
True. But shit, I mean, I'd rather get Kuminga than some heavily protected first round pick. That's
And you think about it, Kuminga with Herro, with Bam,
Wiggins is there.
with Khalil Ware.
They're like a little play-in team.
Yeah, they have some young talent. Now, if the Warriors don't want to add in Wiggins, the trade package would be Melton, GP2, Kyle Anderson, Kevon Looney, Kuminga, and Guy Santos.
We're sending the roster.
You're sending 6 players to match the salary,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, if you could keep Wiggins, though, the way he's been playing, I wouldn't
If
be
you
mad.
can keep Wiggins, I'm all send all the picks in the world.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Then we have Steph,
very well.
Wiggins, Jimmy, Dre, whoever's
Yeah,
at
you're
the
gonna need
5.
Wiggins at that
That'll
3
move me.
spot.
That'll move
a
me
lot.
tremendously.
I think that would be a great move for the Warriors.
That'll move me tremendously. And then you keep Pods up the bench. And then you have Kyle Anderson still, who I think when
Still got
he
Buddy.
plays, he play. You have Buddy. Yeah, that'll move me the most
Yeah.
for sure.
If you could keep Wiggins, that's a fact.
But you won't. I don't think you'll be able to keep Wiggs.
The easiest pathway to getting a trade done, I think, is with the Rockets because they have a lot of contracts that can potentially
young
match
players,
Jimmy Butler's money and salary. The Rockets' first trade package, Fred VanVleet and Tari Eason.
Ooh.
Go
How
Tari.
about Cam? Said Atari.
I thought
What's
Tari's
Cam's
untouchable.
value?
Yeah,
Tari. They said Tari's
Whitmore.
untouchable.
Cam Whitmore and Tari. Now we're talking a little bit. Cam.
For both of them?
Honestly, if I'm
Yeah.
Miami, I would just
Jimmy?
accept it
This
if
is
they
Jimmy
give me
Butler,
Tari.
bro.
That's a
This
fact.
is Jimmy on a 1 year.
Yes.
I
You get his
think.
bird rights. I mean, that helps resigning.
I'll be
More likely to
honest. If
retain him.
I'm the Rockets, I'm not giving up Tari for a 1 year rental.
Nah.
I
If it's-
agree.
unless it's
if I were
longer.
Houston, I'm not doing that. If I'm Miami, I'd want more.
Oh, so
Oh,
neither way it's
yeah,
happening.
I don't know. For Miami, I would take Tari Eason. I wouldn't think twice about
Yeah,
it.
if I'm
Yeah, what's the better
I'm
package?
taking Fred and
Yeah.
Tari. I'm good. Like
So, like
yeah.
I said, this is just to match the
Hey,
salaries.
that lines up a men too. Could get in the starting rotation.
This salary works.
I'm definitely
This
not
is
doing
the
that,
second trade package I have cooked up, and I think this is more realistic.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks, because now a wing starting
Positionally,
spot
yeah.
opens up for Jimmy Butler. Steven Adams is also in the trade, salary filler. Aaron Holiday, Cam Whitmore, a 2025 first round pick, and a 2027 first round pick from Phoenix.
2 first and Cam Whitmore is decent. I like that.
I don't hate it.
2 first, Whitmore, Dylan Brooks, and Adams could be like
Hey,
a backup
that
center.
27 first could be something though.
It definitely could. You're gonna want more for Jimmy, but again, that expiring deal makes his trade value like.
If I'm
2 stars,
Miami, I could
2
get
stars.
2 first round picks, one of them being Phoenix's pick and Cam
I
Whitmore.
think
Like,
Cam Whitmore
yeah.
is a lot of upside in a place like Miami.
And if
For
you're
sure.
the Rockets, you would have Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Jimmy Butler, Jabari still,
we don't gotta include Jalen
Shengun,
Green.
Tari Eason, Amen Thompson.
I
They
might
would
just
still
trade
have a good
Jalen
team.
Green in the first, straight up.
he has what?
And Steven
trade-
Adams.
Yeah, he has no trade value on that deal.
Exactly.
The reason why that is difficult is because Jalen Green, the contract extension he just got,
So
that's not his salary this year.
Yeah, it's the wait 1 more year.
Yeah. Right now it's like $8 million.
Damn. I hate that, truly. Because that would have been the guy to move.
It would have.
Because then you could keep Tari
Next year.
and Jabari and them boys.
listen, worst case scenario, Houston holds it down for one more season. You do not have to make any sort of move this year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Ride it out. You're gonna be probably a top 5 seed. ride it out with them young boys. You know what I mean? Like, let's go crazy.
I do have to go though.
I got to drive Riff to his game. Then
and that's going to do it for this episode of the Pick a Side Podcast. You guys can follow us on Twitter at Pick a Side Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.